From downtown, this is Tim Kittrow from NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, and Mutant Football League saying, you're watching video game bullshit. Kaboom!
Hi, this is Eugene Jarvis, and welcome to Video Game Bullshit!
Welcome to Video Game Bullshit! Welcome.
Love it.
Welcome, Daniel. We are here with a Video Game Bullshit interview. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, it was great having you on. We were chatting a few weeks ago. You're like, hey, I'd love to come on. And I'm like, oh, just so happens to be that we need to start doing some interviews for the relaunch of Video Game Bullshit. And I was like, this is perfect.
Right place, right time.
Yeah. And so basically we'll go at this. We're going bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
You can go as off the rails as you want to, but it's about you, man. So I'd like to know about you, what you do. So for people that might not know you, even though at this channel, how small we are, they probably know you, but what you do and what motivates you, and then we'll go from there. I like to do everything fluid, no scripts, man.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Okay, so I'm Daniel Ibbertson, aka Slopes Game Room. You can find me on the YouTubes. I create videos based on the history of video games and also Kickstarter scams as well. That's it. I basically look like my job is your nostalgia. And that I've just come up with that needs to be my tagline. I've never said that before.
I was gonna say my job is your nostalgia.
That might have to be my new tagline. I've never said that before ever.
I like that though. That's catchy. My job is your nostalgia. Like you need to coin that. That is awesome. And the one thing that I like about your videos though, Daniel, is I like the historical perspective and then the depth that you go into on your videos. So you go pretty far down the damn rabbit hole where I'm like, oh, well, he isn't thinking about this detail. And then like 2 seconds later, you're like, oh, and by the way, and I'm like,
right.
He's saying that.
I eventually get to the point. Yeah. I like to go around the world and back before I cover the bits that people expect me to cover.
Well, I mean, you did have that giant video that you just covered about the Amico.
The Amico, man. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was a long one. And
that was a cool video to make.
And that's the one thing, like me making cool shit, like I gotta have something on while I'm working on stuff, and having some lengthy, interesting videos where I get completely sidetracked and stop doing stuff, mind you, is great. It's great having content. So how though did you get started? Because we know what you do now, but
it started as all of YouTube or just that Amico video?
No, let's start with all of YouTube. How did you get started doing what you do?
Okay. Well, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be in the video game biz somehow. Somehow, I'm not very good at like coding or anything like that, but I was always fascinated by just buying magazines, looking at interviews, all that sort of thing, looking at reviews. And I just started. It got to a point where I started becoming fascinated with retro gaming and just learning about the history of retro gaming. And a lot of my friends would, they'd know the obvious stuff. Your Doki Doki Panic is Mario 2, all the really obvious things. When I'd start getting really nerdy with them, it would go too hardcore. It'd be too hardcore for them, which is fine. Not everyone is obsessed in this sort of stuff as I am. But thankfully, that's where the internet comes in. The internet is the world's biggest showroom. You can basically go there and you will find people that are into your interests at your level or even beyond. And I started becoming fascinated with all these YouTubers that were doing videos about classic video game history. And I especially became fascinated with looking for people that were talking about things that I didn't know about. And I don't mean that to come off as big-headed, but obviously when it's your job and you just become stupidly fascinated with it as a hobby, you know a lot about the retro gaming history. So when people come up to you and they're talking about ET carts in the desert and stuff like this, you're like, yeah, I've heard this. But I think originally it was, there are a few channels that really stood out to me. But I remember when everyone says Angry Video Game Nerd, but I remember once when he brought up about the Sword Quest games, about like there was the chalice you could win and the sword you could win and all this stuff. I had no idea about any of that.
Like where's the crown at?
Yeah.
Error World.
See,
Like, where's it at?
I didn't know anything about that history whatsoever.
Okay.
And because I didn't know about it, I was like, my God, that's fascinating. Like, I was so blown away by that particular episode. I like a lot of his stuff, but that particular episode, I was like, wow.
Well,
It's not
how
one that many people brought up.
And how crazy the U.S. is. There is still a chance that one of those items is somebody's damn garage. Like, it is sitting
For
somewhere.
sure.
It could be. There's a high likelihood, like what they said in the video, that something was melted down or something for money. And
Sure. That would suck.
Yeah, but that's a high likelihood from that era because nobody had an appreciation of preservation. But
absolutely,
there is still that gambler's chance that you're going to go to a damn yard sale of some older couple and you're going to find the damn crown from Airworld and it's going to be sitting there.
100%. I wouldn't be surprised if someone has it and they have no idea what they've got.
Yeah.
No idea what they've got.
That's the interesting thing about learning about those pieces of history. It's awesome.
I mean, because honestly, when you look at like that sword and all that sort of stuff that's missing, the items that are missing, they're probably actually quite worthless in their design. They're not like stupidly old. Like they're not antiques, but to gamers, they are right up there with some of the best things you could get. Serious relics. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, one of the crazy ones that I have from a flea market is my brother was in Ohio, which is way far away from where they held the Nintendo World Championships or the Power Fest 94. And he found a Mario statue, a gold Mario statue, and he bought it from me. It was a couple bucks. Little known fact was it's the exact same Mario statue that was given to the winner of the Power Fest 94.
Wow.
Just didn't.
And you've got that still.
I have it, and the guy who won Power Fest showed me his trophy. It's the exact same one. It's made by the people that did the Oscars, and it has a giant stone base, like a marble base.
Yeah.
It's just they have a nameplate. So my theory is that these were given to employees as well at the time. And I have an employee one, but from a historical perspective, that is a piece of Nintendo history that I have.
Oh, yeah, and some.
And
yeah.
That's like a cool little fun thing in my collection.
Yeah.
I go for cool stuff. So it's
I suppose the closest thing we would have as a similarity thing like that in the UK would probably be the golden joystick from Games Master. Yeah. That was like a really big thing to get hold of. Like if you won at Games Master, you got this joystick, and all it was is a spray painted joystick in like a plastic case. But getting those bad boys now, that's not an easy grab anymore.
And I like the chase things, and there's not too many people doing anything like that anymore where you can earn something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why with Premium we're doing the little patch challenges and stuff, the little fun thing, because I'm mailing patches to people that complete challenges based on the developers' Activision style. And to me, that was
like Atari did back in the day.
Exactly, like Activision.
Yeah.
So, are you when you go to Super Blood Hockey, you take a life in franchise mode, which is what the developer wanted. I mail you a Deathbringers patch.
That's so freaking cool.
And
that's so
we've done
freaking
it for
cool.
Every release, we've done NES games. We do it for NES games. We do it for everything. And it's like if Nintendo's gonna say that I can do things, I'm gonna have fun with it. Why not?
Yeah.
We're gonna do things to a different beat. It's fun. It's cool. And just like you, we just want to make cool shit.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. That's it. Yeah, for sure.
So, as I said, we will go off the rails and go deep.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So continue on how you started.
How I got into it. Okay, yeah. So, I was always fascinated by that sort of history. And originally, I'm going to do a YouTube video. I created the channel, and it was the URL originally was DJ Slope's Room, because I was going to have all these different rooms. It's not just gaming that I'm into. I'm into animation and a few other things. I was going to have a Slope's game room, Slope's animation room, Slope's movie room. Yeah, horror room. Yeah, I'm into my horrors. So I was looking at all these different things I could do, but it was always gaming that was going to be number one. I didn't really know what angle to go down, and I was always worried about what people would think of my voice and all this sort of stuff, and I probably sat on it for about a year before I uploaded. And I remember once I created a video, and I tried to be like a character, like an angry video game nerd or someone like that, and I had some kind of Beetlejuice voice.
Ooh, I need a sample. A sample of what you did.
How was it? I'd have to try and. What was it like?
Give us
hey, how you doing?
Give us a video game bullshit. Give us a video game bullshit intro. in your DJ slot?
I don't know. Hey, you're listening to video game bullshit.
Nobody use that somewhere now.
Yeah, you got to use that somehow. But no, I always had like this sort of like, yeah, sort of like, I was going to be a character and I was actually going to be animated on the screen because I was worried about the way I looked and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I done it. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm happy with this. And I kept looking up more like, lazy game reviews and stuff. And I'm like, no, I want to be taken seriously to a degree. Like, there's still some comedy in there, but like, I don't want to be a character. I want to actually be known for doing serious stuff. And, yeah, I remember he was going through a phase of doing videos on things like calculators, which is just such a boring topic. But when you watch them, you're like, my God, he nails it. Like, that's so fascinating. I've got no interest in calculators. I don't own a calculator.
Shout out to Lazy Game Reviews, because last time I saw him at a trade show, I think it was Southeast Game Exchange, he had an old ass computer out there. Like something that you're interested in. He had to sit on his table, and his LGR he had patches, they were like a floppy disk.
Right. Oh, that's so freaking cool.
It was so cool.
Yeah, it's just awesome, like, dude. Yeah, he covers topics that I could not be less interested in. Yeah. But the way he delivers them and the way he creates them, I become interested in them, and I'm like, you know what? Like, this is the angle I want to go down. Yeah. And along with like Angry Video Game Nerd and a few other things like that, I put it all together, and I worked really hard on that first video, and it was all about a British gaming mascot we had here called Roland on the Amstrad 8-bits. Okay. And the funny thing about this, that was like my first one before I had a Sega, before I even knew what Nintendo was. This mascot was for Amstrad, like I say, Roland, and named after one of the people that worked on the system, Roland Perry. And what he would do is he would go, Alan Sugar, the guy who basically made Alan Michael Sugar Trading, Amstrad CPC. He would go to these developers, or Roland would go to these developers and say, make me a game about Roland. But that's as far as the video, as far as the pitch meeting would go. So everyone would come to him with these Roland games, and they'd all be different. Like, once he's a pirate, in another game he's a flea, in another game he's an adventurer. Like, he's completely different in every single. One of them he's a cube. So they're like, and I just found that so fascinating. You know, so many people talk about the history of American video games, but they didn't really talk about the British stuff. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And I did that video, and I was like looking at the clock, and I was getting all 2 views, 3 views, or maybe it's just me hitting refresh, I don't know. And then I put it in a retro gaming forum. I said, hey guys, what do you think? And no one was responding. I went to bed, woke up, and there was like 2 pages of people thanking me, saying that this is really, really good, really, really good. I was like, wow. And from that first ever video, it really blew my passion for this whole thing up, just interacting with people and talking about gaming and talking about factoids that other people didn't know. Yeah, that was it. It's no longer the first video on my channel because, like I said, it was my first ever one, and I used a massive news sample from the BBC, and they flagged it. So I deleted the video, and then I've re-uploaded it now, so you can still find it, but it's no longer the first video on my channel, which is annoying because I have to always remind myself on when my birthday for my channel is, because it's no longer the first video, but it is what it is.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had a channel on YouTube for 12 years now, or something, or maybe 15 years at this point. I'm old, but the thing is that like I never had the talent to take it to that level. It's awesome. Sure. Like it's just one of those things where I can, at the gift of gab, I can shoot the shit, I can make cool stuff, but I definitely don't have that spin that's really, really, really cool. And
no, that's it. Yeah, no, I was just always fascinated by that sort of stuff, and I had to keep going, you know.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and then so eventually you got to a point where it became like almost like the main thing, right, that you do.
Yeah. So it took about 4 years. Roughly, I can't even remember now. About 4 years, say, maybe a little bit longer, for it to turn from a hobby into a job. And the way it worked was, so I done my video, and it done really well, and then I released another one a month later, and I released another one. And the third video I ever put out was Streets of Rage: The Complete History, which ended up being my most popular video for the longest time. I go back and look at it now, and I find it really cringy, and I actually look and I'm like, you know what, there isn't actually a lot of history in this video. And then I redone it, and then I added all that in many years down into the future when they released Streets of Rage 4. But yeah, so I kept going, and I remember I was about a year in, and I'd finally started earning money, maybe 6 months or something like that. And I was like, I am loving this so much. Like, this is so much fun. Like, getting to like interact with people, and I'm speaking to other YouTubers. And by this point, I was actually reaching out and speaking to like who I would class as like YouTube royalty that wanted to speak to me. I was like, this is freaking awesome. This is so cool. And by this point, I was maybe earning like 100 a month or something. I'm like, if I do 2 videos a month, will I get double the amount of views? And I tried it, and it worked. I'm like, so if I put out a video every week, 4 videos a month, does that mean I get 4 times the amount? And 4 times the amount of people following, and I get to like interact with 4 times the amount of people, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, it worked, and I could just a path appeared, and I'm like, okay, if I just do this now and just keep going until I get to this particular target, this could be a job for me.
Yeah.
Like, how freaking awesome is that? And yeah, like now I have what I would class as one of the best jobs. Well, it's definitely the best job I've ever had. Because I don't class it as a job.
Yeah, because I was like, you're calling it a job, but it sounds like it's still fun. Because
absolutely.
There's that piece where it becomes work. So it's a job.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I have to make sure, like, okay, put the game down now. Stop playing. You've recorded enough footage or whatever it is. Let's get to the editing, or let's get to the scripting, or whatever, like that. So I have to like give myself a little bit of a kick up the backside sometimes. But I still love what I do. I tell you what it was. I used to work in sales and marketing, and I remember like my manager, and I would be selling like IT parts. And when I say IT parts, I don't mean exciting graphics cards or video game systems or anything like that. We're talking like blades for a server, stuff that I just have no interest in. I wouldn't even know what to do with if it was given to me. But I knew what the part numbers were, and I knew when people wanted them, what I'd need to sell them for. It was So I remember he would wake up and he'd be like, so Dan, what you need to do, you need to wake up in the morning, you need to be in that shower, and you'd be thinking to yourself, like, how can I get more business doing this? How can I get more people to see what I'm doing? And I'm just like, I don't care about this. This is so boring. And I know that these people that are also obsessed with learning how to sell server blades and God knows whatever else, if they lost their job and they ended up going to work at a baked bean factory, all of a sudden it would be all about baked beans. Yeah. It's just like, I'm interested in server blades or baked beans or whatever it is I have to sell at this job. I want. And then before you know it, without even realizing it, I am in the shower and I'm thinking, what can my next video be about? What should I do? And I'm like, wow, I've just become that person. I'm doing it on something that I love. And yeah, like it all just clicked. All those things I was learning for stuff I didn't want to do was actually working really well as for Slopes Game Room as a brand, as a channel, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a common theme that I've noticed, because it's something similar with my own, where when you know that you're in the right piece, the right market, you're doing the right thing, when that's what you're thinking about is, how do I better get my name out there? Because the one thing I've noticed, because I've been doing books forever, the podcast, we were always the underground. Like we were the cool kids podcast, video game bullshit. We were always the cool kids, because it was less when we were recording. But the thing is that like with premium now, because we're publishing damn games, like it's still getting people to know you're there. That's it. Mm-hmm. Like if you can do that, like, and it's like, all right, what am I doing to maximize that? All right, then now it's like, all right, what's the next game that I'm going to do? What am I going to do and move and tweak some stuff, like you're talking content for the next videos and doing all that stuff.
Exactly.
And I was in the same boat as you. I wasn't going to necessarily only write about video games. I was going to do some other, like do some military books or do some stuff on horror movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My very first endeavor was Hagens Horror Haven, and I wrote reviews online and an Angel Fire page. And I was getting screeners from people, and this was back in early 2000s, like 2001. Yeah. and I was getting movies into reviewing stuff, and it was really, really cool. And then, you know, later on when, you know, got back to the States from Germany doing a military, you know, deployment and things, I was like, I really want to write about video games. And, you know, but that's when I realized I started obsessing about it, like you're talking exactly with yours too. You know, you get in that mindset where this is all you're thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it got to the point where I remember once thinking like, I want to play a video game because I'm actually not really playing that many at the moment. I'm just so interested in doing all of this.
So how are you able to play the games that you?
It's really hard. It's a real shame because I don't tend to. And I've always been like a bit of an arcade gamer, as in like a game that's over and done with, and you just play over and over and over and over again, trying to get a better score, like an Outrun or whatever else. And a lot of the indie games I pick up, like Donut Dodo, Vampire Survivors, Binding of Isaac, all this sort of stuff, like I tend to play games that are just play over and over and over again. And I struggle. Only a few times a year do I pick up a big like adventure game, whether that's for a new system like a Spider-Man game or an Uncharted or going back and playing one of the older games. Yeah. I very rarely play a game from beginning to end. Unless it's for a video, of course, from beginning to end, because I'm just so focused on those smaller indie titles, because I don't have a lot of time to play these big adventure games. And when I do, like, say, for instance, Spider-Man, it would take me months to complete it because I only chuck in like an hour here or an hour there. And I'm still in that mindset that I have to get every little thing. So to the point when I go up against that final boss at the end, I'm like a mammoth.
We talked about it, like I'm OCD by nature, and that's why I do my collector books and stuff, but it's like, I'm in the same boat. I'm like an hour champion. I'll play a game for an hour or two and move on. Mm-hmm. And like, we actually had a topic about this on the podcast where it's like, has your taste changed over the years as you've gotten older, had responsibilities such as jobs, family, or projects that just take away your time? And mine absolutely have. Like I jump into, I love retro gaming anyway, so I'm jumping into retro games, but I'm more like at the Vampire Survivors of the small palatable games that I can jump into. You mentioned Donut Dodo, that game's amazing. I love it. That's
a brilliant game. Yeah. It's crazy because I've pumped a serious amount of time into that. Yeah. You know, it's like the argument I have with my wife, like, should we watch a film? Like, I don't really fancy a film. Let's put a TV show on. And then we watch like 2 or 3 hours of that one TV show. And I'm like, we could have totally watched the film instead. And it's the same with me with gaming. Like, I haven't really got time for a big adventure game, but I'm going to go play 4 hours of Binding of Isaac.
Exactly. And there is always that title that'll pull you in eventually, and you're in that right spot where you don't have something to pull you away. I've noticed there are games that I should love, and because of circumstance of working on projects or a book or game case or doing something like that, like I don't get into it, and then I never get back to it. So my backlog is like insane. Like it's I'm looking into a solution for the backlog. I've been doing it forever. I've seen a few different options of YouTubers where it's like to create this spreadsheet and you can kind of categorize them. So I have like a little going spreadsheet of backlog stuff that I now haven't maintained in 6 months. So there's that too. So it's always that kind of piece.
Yeah, I mean, that already seems like it's more work for me now. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah, I was keeping it simple. I was just putting the game, and I was putting if I played it, if I beat it, and then on how long to beat, how long it takes, so you can tag, all right, this is how many hours this game would take. And then when I'm thinking of a palatable small game, I'm like, oh, in my backlog, this game only takes 6 hours. I can maybe beat it.
Right. I remember once I did a 52 games in a year thing, tried to beat 52 games in a year. And a lot of the time I would get like random main games I've never heard of, because I know you could probably just get to the end pretty quickly, like within an hour or so. But I discovered so many games doing that, like these classic like beat 'em up games and stuff that I didn't really know too much about. And I thought to myself, what, have I actually ever completed Alien vs Predator, the arcade game? I'm gonna go try it out. And then wow, this is great fun. And you rekindle all these classic games by doing that. And it's also the reason I stream as well, from time to time. Not I don't stream a lot, but the reason I force myself to stream is, one, because it's cool to interact with people, but two, it means I actually give myself some downtime to actually play some video games outside of the obvious ones I'll just pick up. you know.
And my thing is though, is like I've tried streaming, but I kind of like just enjoying it in my own leisure.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, because it's like I always feel like I'm on spot when I have to do that, and then there'll be like lag, like computer freezing, and then I'm like, well, now I got to interact with that and fix that. And the one interesting thing though that I recently found, you've played on RetroPies, obviously. You have the button where you hit a button and it randomizes and picks a random game.
Yeah.
I was doing a YouTube channel like that. It was called Retro Roundtable, Retro Random Roundtable or something. And I would pick a game and I would cover it and I would review it afterward. I'd play it live, then review it, and it was cool.
Yeah, I started doing. I was actually I only started it last week, and I was going to do it again this week, but I'm actually away, so I'm already on the second week. I'm going to have to cancel it and move on to later on. But I was going to start doing Itchy Tuesdays, where I just get random games off itch.io.
Okay.
And like there are some seriously good hidden gems.
There's so many.
I downloaded Super Bowl Deluxe, I think it was, and it was Mario, Sonic, Knuckles, all the usual characters, Luigi, Wario, but all in a game together, and they play a little bit differently in a typical platforming game. And I was like, this is so well done. Like I was blown away by how good it was. I'm like, this could be a released product. Like it's so good.
Well, and one of the things that was interesting is kind of helping me get after my backlog a little bit, because my backlog now also has another added layer to something that I could potentially sign for premium edition games.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It overcomplicates things, because like now it's like, well, what can I find out there that we could potentially, preserve? And it's like, I want to preserve everything, but then time. So you have a Steam Deck, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So are you familiar with the Decky plugin?
No, I haven't got any plugins for my Steam Deck.
So you can install it in the desktop mode. Decky plugins allow you to do things such as Vibrant Deck, which you can put up the saturation and it makes it look like an OLED, mind you.
Oh.
You can adjust how the menus look and all that, and round the corners and make more art and do all that crazy stuff too. However, the coolest thing that they have is called Deck Roulette. And you can go to any collection that you've created, and you can hit a button, and it pops it up. It pops up a random game in your Steam library, and I have thousands of games on my Steam library. And so, and I just, anything that looks cool, and we talked about this, before, I have thousands of games in my backlog that I need to play. And I went through the entire, because I'm OCD, the entire library of Steam, and I did that, but now I have a giant amount of games. What do you play? This Deck Roulette thing does a randomizer for me for Steam, which is great. That doesn't exist in Steam, but it exists for the Deck.
It should exist with Steam.
It should exist. And the other thing is it also adds in how long to beat, and it puts a little bar, shows you the time for the game too.
Nice.
So you can mess around with that.
That's a really, really cool little extra. I like that.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm using it for, is utility for those type of things. It has a lot of little tweaks and features just to add that Steam will likely put into its own firmware updates in the future. So you may or may not need to do any plugins or anything. The other plugin I really like is you can add Xbox Game Pass via plugin.
Right.
It's essentially framing with coding the browser to work on the Steam Deck perfectly, and you load into the browser version of Xbox Game Pass, and it plays fine. It's streaming.
Beautiful.
But it plays fine. Like, I don't even have an Xbox Series X, and I have Game Pass, and I play it on my Steam Deck.
Oh yeah, no, my friend's does it. I did try it out, and I quite liked it. I did quite like it, but again, I tend to not have these subscription services, because months and months and months go by where I just don't play video games.
Yep.
And I'm just playing the games that I buy, so I just stopped them because I downloaded it to check out that weird alien-like Splice. No, it wasn't Splice. I can't think it was like weird alien-like first-person shooter where it's all really weird and mechanical. I can't think what it's called right now. First-person shooter, but it was all right. And I was just like, okay, I've done that. And then a couple of months went past. I haven't played anything else. I'm going to cancel this.
Yeah, and in all honesty, like, I'm probably in your boat where I need to, because like I also do the Humble bundle every month with.
Yeah, I've got the choice one. I've got choice.
You
Yeah.
get to keep. So that's cool.
Yes.
Like later on,
Yes.
I'll have it. I have the code. I actually didn't even know this, but I had 10 years of backing, supporting Kickstarters, and I had codes in there
wow.
that I hadn't redeemed on Steam. And I'm like, oh, here's this game, and and I'm like, they just created my backlog even worse.
Yeah, sure.
And so that's the one
I've backed things on Kickstarter that I've still never played to this day.
Yeah, and so many great games, and there's games I forgot I backed, and I'd buy the physical on Switch later, and I'm like, oh, I already have this. Because
yeah. Well, that's why I started. I sold all of my Mega Drive games just before I went full time as a YouTuber.
Okay.
And the reason I'd done it is because I got to a point where I'm like, right, I'm going to do an Echo the Dolphin complete history. I'm going to talk about the history of Echo the Dolphin. I need to go and buy the game Echo the Dolphin because I need it as a prop. I need it to like hold up in the video and stuff like that. And so I'd go and buy it. And at the time, I was just going to boot fairs or I was going anywhere and buying bundles of games and putting them in big boxes and they'd go up in the attics. I didn't have a place to store them like neatly. And I bought it and I'm like, I've got this game twice already. So I like had the game 3 times. I'm like, I have no attachment to any of my games because I'm just buying them and putting them in boxes and then forgetting what I have. Yeah. So now I just buy games that I want. You know, maybe I'll get them for a video, but like I just buy the games I want to play and I want to buy the physical games. I mean, so I'm looking up at my Mega Drive shelf and I've gone back up to maybe 100 games, but I know every game I have. Because I've bought them one by one. The Steam libraries, nothing like that. I haven't got as many as you. I've got like maybe 600, maybe 700. I don't know, something like that.
That's insane. That's more than you can play in your lifetime. Like,
absolutely.
600 is, and I got thousands, and it's like,
and I look and I'm like, there's Alan Wake, and I was like, I remember when I bought that like 10 years ago, and I thought I'm going to play this one day, and I've still never installed it.
So I have an Echo the Dolphin story. If you want to hear it.
Yeah, I've got one for you as well.
So that same year that I was at Southeast Game Exchange, where I met Clint, Lazy Game Reviews. We were at a party night before day one, Friday night. We're at a party. Mm-hmm. The guys who run Video Games Monthly, they do the loot box. Joe Koch is there, and he's always drunk as hell. He'll walk around and greet you with a shot in your hand. They had a suite, and we're over there. But beforehand, we were at a bar, and I'm with Jay from the Game Chasers and 8-Bit Eric, and we're over there getting trashed. And we look over in the bar, and we're like, "That's the creator of Echo the Dolphin."
Ed Annunziata.
And we're like, hey Ed, you wanna come back to this party that we're doing with Video Games Monthly? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. He's a really quiet dude. So he comes with us, and we're getting wasted. And he gets so trashed that we're like Jay and I are taking him back to his room like a child, and he had a CPAP machine, and we didn't know if he needed that to breathe or whatever. So we're getting them there, and he was like a child. Like he was so like, I was like, man, I didn't know him, so I thought he was like, well, maybe he's like one of those geniuses, you know what I mean? Like he's listening to And so I see him the next day, and he's like shooting the shit with me, like, oh hey, what's up? Like, and I'm like, oh yeah, you were wasted yesterday, weren't you? He's like, oh yeah, I was shit faced. It was great. Like, it was hilarious though, because I thought he was just out there. He's just really quiet drunk. Like it was, but we were doing shots, and I had one of my authors for Hagens Alley with me. His name's 8-Bit Steve, and he did the Easy Way Friday the 13th, where you could be Friday the 13th the easy way. That was the book he released, and he was trying to impress Ed so much that he got so wasted that he was like crawling on the ground. And he was so drunk. And then we look out there. I'm like, hey, look outside. It's still light out. It's like 6 p.m. we just went to dinner and went back and got, like, it was so crazy. So, like, this whole stuff that happened, there's, like, families in the hotel. And I'm, like, sitting there, like, I drank with them, but I don't get shit. I'm too old to get shit faced. I don't do any of that. And
that's freaking awesome.
Like, it was so funny, though, but that's, like, my interaction with Echo the Dolphin is, like, Ed's a cool dude.
I'll tell you an interesting Echo the Dolphin story. So, before I did my complete history of the Echo the Dolphin video, I did a video called, can I swear? Yeah, I can. You said bullshit.
It's video game bullshit.
So, the completely fucked up history of Echo the Dolphin. That was the video I did. And the reason I'd done it is I read this really cool article about how where Ed Annunziata came up with the name and the concept for Echo the Dolphin. Now, this is I don't know if you've seen that video, and this was back when I was doing videos that would go up on my channel and also Larry Bundy's channel as well, as like a bit of cross promotion. And so I released this video, and the idea was, I read this whole article about it, and I had to do all this research, and there was a big BBC documentary about it and stuff like that. But no one had hardly ever linked the two together, like how this absurd story became Echo the Dolphin. So basically, what it was in the 1970s, I want to say, there was some NASA. No, sorry, not NASA. There was like some obsessed scientist guy that wanted to teach dolphins how to speak. And he made this big pool in an old house, and the dolphins lived there. And he would try and get them to speak out of their blowhole. And he actually got them to kind of reenact sounds, but it wasn't like you couldn't work out what they were saying. It was just like 1, 2, 3. It's like wah, wah, wah. So you would try. They were getting somewhere, but it wasn't. You couldn't have a conversation with a dolphin. And the idea was, if aliens ever came down, dolphins could be a way to speak with aliens. This is so weird. And this is all true. This is a true thing. And they were funded. They were actually funded. I can't remember if it was by like NASA or like government funding. They got funding to do this. Anyway, it got really, really messy, this whole story, to the point where their dolphins were like in heat, and they'd need their release before they can, because they were just going frantic and going crazy. So they had a female scientist that would literally do that to the dolphin to relieve them, sorry, and then they could get on with their stuff. And then she got shamed because it ended up being in a Playboy. Like there was an article about it, and she got shamed and all this other stuff. And then they lost their funding, and the scientists started going crazy and like jackhammering the pool, and it would vibrate and it would upset the dolphins. And then it ended with the dolphin dying and literally committing suicide, like went underwater and wouldn't come back up. And it was a really, really nasty story. And the link was the guy, the scientist, started just going absurd and started just losing his mind and started believing that aliens were talking to him. And he called them something, and it spelt out the word echo. And that's where the name Echo came from. And the whole story of like with aliens in the Echo games, it's all kind of inspired by this. But Ed Annunziata, I don't think knew all of the gruesome parts of that story. He just found it as a fascinating history story about scientists trying to get dolphins to speak. But there was actually quite a gruesome story behind it. Also, I did this whole video about the whole thing. And it went up on Larry's channel, and I was getting a bit upset at the time because people kept thinking I was Larry, and people kept when people were sharing the video. Have you seen Larry's latest video? Have you seen Larry's? No, it's my video. I made that video, and it done really, really well. Anyway, I went up to Sega. And I finally got to go to Sega, which was like me going to like Disneyland or something. Like, oh my god, I've made it! I've gone to Sega, because that was like, I remember like a tear went down my eye when I saw up and I saw that big blue Sega logo. Like, oh my god, I'm about to go in that building right there. Like, I was so happy. And I went up there, and they were showing me around. They were talking to me, and then they took me into this meeting room. And like, well, look, we just want to say, like, we really love your videos. Echo the Dolphin video, not so much. But we love all of your videos. I can understand why you didn't like the Echo video. I can understand. And then, anyway, the video got, as you would expect, hit with a not suitable for children stamp. And I mean, the video was literally called "The Fucked Up History Behind Echo the Dolphin."
It's not
and then, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and be nice and keep myself calm with Sega. Everyone thinks Larry did this bloody video anyway. And Larry was asking me, hey, can you send me the video again, but with a different title? And I'll re-upload it, because he wasn't earning money on the video, and neither was I. And I was like, yeah, all right. So I sent him the video, and he paid me for it. And then I created the complete history of Echo the Dolphin, without that bit in there, just like the history of the games. And then Ed Annunziata tweeted, this video is amazing. He loved the video, and thank God he isn't like that other guy that made a video about the messed up history. I was like, yeah.
Voice really sounds similar, but that asshole. That asshole.
Yeah, I was like, that weren't me. Yeah, sure, that weren't me. Okay.
Wasn't me at all. Hey, Ed.
It totally was. And then he became a Patreon of mine as well. I was like, this is insane. I've actually got the guy on emails now. But he, I don't think he realized it was me that made that original video.
And even if he does, he's a cool ass dude. Now, like,
yeah. So one day he said he'll be willing to do an interview one day, and when I do an interview with him, I'm going to say live on camera, I've got a confession for you, Ed. I know he wasn't a fan of that first video, and I think now is the time to reveal that was me. I made that video.
It was me all along.
Yeah. So there's my Ed Annunziata. story
so funny
for you.
though. So an interesting Sega tidbit that happened last year, actually, that you might find interesting, especially bringing it forward to Nintendo Switch. So I publish for Nintendo, right? Like I publish physical games for Nintendo as a third-party physical publisher. Based on the rules of Nintendo, you have to use an officially authorized Nintendo assembly plant. So I have to choose from a list where I want my games assembled at. So I can't just have DJ Slope print out my stuff in his garage and make Nintendo Switch stuff. I have to go through one of these locations. Last year, we were looking to move because we moved a warehouse up to a different state. And we were looking to find a place a little bit closer to where we currently were. And we were just talking to all the different people. And so we're talking to this new plant that's like less than an hour from where our warehouse is for pre-edition games.
Nice.
And they're like, oh yeah, we used to publish games. They're a big DVD and CD manufacturer and assembly plant. But they're like, oh yeah, we used to do some games back in the day. I think we worked with Sega. But let me look at. I have it on my wall. Let me go look. Oh, it's a game. I don't know if you've heard of it. This is our first game. It's called Sonic the Hedgehog. And so they're the ones that did all of Sega Genesis in the States.
Did you say, can I have that frame, please?
Yeah, I was like, he honestly didn't know that was a big deal. like,
and some people don't. Some people don't realize. Honestly, they don't realize that there is such a hardcore niche for this thing.
Yeah,
it's not a niche anymore. Like it's I would say it's fully surpassed like record collecting and all these other things. It's huge.
So an interesting thing. Do you have antique stores or flea markets out there over where you're at? Do you know what those?
Oh yeah, so quite close to where I live, there's a bit more of an older generation town called Tenterden, like maybe, I don't know, 40 minutes away. And there's a few antique shops there. You tend to find antique shops, but they're very few and far between, but there'll always be, jewelry and watches and maybe some kind of antique board gamey type things, the closest thing you'll get. You're never going to find like video games in there. Flea markets, the closest thing we would have to that is boot fairs. What we call them, boot fairs. So people just rock up with their cars in the middle of a field. They pay like £10 or whatever it is to enter. They put up their tables and then they put their games on. But you are almost never, I can't remember the last time I saw anything video game wise that wasn't on a CD, unless it's like obviously a Switch game or something.
So I got two tidbits. One will be from this weekend, but I want to circle back to the antique store. So the flea markets out here, I actually found one local to where I'm at right now, because we hadn't found anything to go hunting for retro stuff or none of that.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana and Chicagoland. There was flea markets everywhere, and they had these ones that are in like these pole barns, and they'd set up and it'd be musty and dusty, and there'd be some retro toys in there, and you get Nintendo games for $1 and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I found one right down the road. We went there last weekend. The first time, I'm like, holy crap, this is my freaking childhood. And I'm walking down an aisle. They have a Play Choice 10 arcade sitting there.
Wow. I know a guy I know that set up a museum here in the UK. He's got a Play Choice 10 and also got the Sega. I can't remember what the name of the Sega Player 10 is it or something like that.
Yeah,
that was right next to it. Yeah.
And
he's got them right next to each other.
It has the gun on it, and the gun itself is worth more than the damn arcade cabinet.
It's nuts. Yeah. Again, there's different editions of the because that would be for like, what would that be for? What game? Oh, I suppose it would be Duck Hunt Versus, wouldn't it? That makes sense.
Gunman.
But I don't think they released the Wild Gunman game in the arcade.
Use your hands?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was for Back to the Future 2.
They
but
used it for the Versus system. They released it for the Versus system, not the...
But there wasn't a Wild Gunman Versus officially released.
Yeah, there's a Wild Gunman in the States.
Okay.
I have the metal marquee for it.
Yeah, okay, no. But there was... Okay, so there was an older... Yeah, there was an older Wild Gun game which used video projectors.
No,
so you would shoot.
There's actually a Versus board for Wild Gunman that was released by Nintendo.
I need to find out about this. Is this like a newer discovery?
No. I wrote about it in my NES Oddities book that was published like 6 years ago. It was actually
Right.
have the marquee in it, and it was Wild Gunman in there. But it's not Play Choice 10. The Play Choice 10 though should just be Duck Hunt. Actually, Freedom Force had a Play Choice 10.
Right.
Freedom Force had one, and yeah, if I had my book, I'd look at it and be like, hey, see, here it is. Here it is.
I need to know more about this versus Wild Gunman, because I did a video on it, but it was so long ago now. Like I'm obviously remembering it wrong.
I'll look, but I also look up the digital, and I could be remembering it wrong. It could be flip flop. It could be Play Choice 10 versus and VS system and all that stuff. Because I know I did some art forks. I had to do all the different colorization, because like you were saying, cutting out for a Blu-ray case, like making it perfect for release. I had to do that for every single one of those old school metal marquees and all the old school.
Yeah.
Because they have the giant marquees for the Versus systems, and they all came with kits and stuff. And so I know I did some editing for it. I'll look it up on the digital one, because everything I have is in storage right now. So, but yes, I will circle back. We can talk that one. But going back to the antiquity stores, right?
Yeah.
And so you were mentioning, collectibles superseding like all the other types of collections. And so I had a guy he ran an antique store for like 20, 30, maybe even 40 years with his family. And he was saying that we are crazy to think that NES games, and this was well before COVID, well before everything, NES games are going to go up in price. They're going to go the way of Atari, where people are going to forget about them, because in the States it goes from Atari to Nintendo. There's no home computers in there that are. Yeah,
we had a huge. That was one of the reasons I started off as well, because everyone talks about that video game crash of 1983. That was just. It was a thing here. We were buying games for like £1 at chemists and stuff.
But Atari is really, really not collectible in the States comparatively to NES. And then, what they were claiming is like, oh, well, people are just going to forget about it, like they do in the antiquities market and antique malls and antique stores. It's just they're going to forget about it. It's going to go down in price, and it's just like going to go through. We kind of call it in the collectors scene the trough of no value.
Right.
Once it hits the trough of no value, things become collectible. With video games, there's no bubble that bursts. The games that are obscure and worth something will continue to be worth something. And this guy had claimed that my NES games, my copy of Panic Restaurant or Little Samson, is going to go down and not be worth something, so you should sell them because it's not something you should invest in. And then not only was he dead wrong, but WADA and Heritage Auctions came around. All this stuff, and then the sealed market went ridiculously insane, inflated, whether that's legit or not. It went ridiculous, and then CIB prices went up, and so it was something where when we originally recorded Video Game Bullshit and we would talk collection, like off the top of our head, I could be like, oh, a CIB of this game would be this price, and we tried doing that like a few years back, and it was like we were a tenth of the price. It was like, oh, this would be $100 game. No, it's $1,000 game now. Like, imagine how much a Little Samson is now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm more a Mega Drive collector, but even some of those games are like the amount of money they've shot up in value. Like, I wanted to get like Sonic and Knuckles, and Mega Drive, the Japanese Mega Drive import. That was, I want to say you could probably get that for about 60 quid about 3 years ago. And I was like, I don't know, 60 quid's quite a lot of money. You will not find that under 100. You will not find, 150 good condition. And I'm like, that's well over double.
Well, and back in the day, it was 20.
It's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers.
Here was the crazy story is that I got, with Kyle, Little Samson and Panic Restaurant in the same weekend for $60 a pop.
Yeah. Yeah, I got Knuckles Chaotix for 15 quid about.
We had thought to not 15 years ago. Little Samson because it was too much money.
Yeah.
At $60.
Mental.
And we were like, no, we're never going to see this again. Like, even then, we were like, man, we never see this game. Because, like, the complete NES book that I wrote was because we were completing the collection, and we did. Every game, including state events, everything. And so that's the insanity, though, was like when we got that one, it was like we would have shot ourselves in the foot, and it would have cost us $1,000 extra if we would have done that. Like, and at the point, like, we were looking for deals. We weren't looking to pay eBay prices. We found everything in the wild. Like, we didn't buy anything online.
Wow.
So, like, it was
it wasn't really a big thing. I do wish I drove back then because I was quite late to the driving scene. And like boot fairs, I remember going there and picking up things like Castlevania Bloodlines, or New Generation it is here in the UK. And that would be like a £5 game, and like you won't get that under 3 digits nowadays.
Well,
and I remember you used to be able to find those quite often.
I got Musha.
Musha. Wow.
I got a copy of Musha. And see, I beat
Beautiful.
And it's insane though, because like now you take that though, and NES is the third generation of games. It's third generation. Fourth generation, fifth generation, we're almost into the sixth generation of it's all went through the trough of no value, and now people are getting out of school the generational approach where that stuff is starting to skyrocket in price.
PlayStation 3 games are really getting quite expensive now. Some of them are like silly money.
So right now,
some of them are like really.
PS4 and Xbox One are in the trough of no value. They're kind of devalued. You can get them pretty affordable. You can go to Your Game or My GameStop and get them used cheap, even though GameStop is just a damn pop store now. There's no freaking games. Like
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we had talked about it on a call, and I actually got further confirmation from other people since we talked, but GameStop here in the U.S., unless it's a major like Legend of Zelda title, they're not ordering any games beyond pre-orders right now, which is that. I mean,
mental.
You say it's mental, like that is insane. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
We have a similar one here in the UK, just called Game.
Yeah.
And Game, the one in my local high street, has gone. And I said it's down near Sports Direct, which is like a really chavvy sort of just, football gear, people that wear tracksuits and stuff like that. And it's here somewhere apparently. And I went into Sports Direct. And I'm like, oh my God, it's in Sports Direct. It's in there. And then you go and have a look, and it's just like Fortnite figurines. And I remember there was a whole alley of amiibos back then. And there's not so much now, but like, just things like that. There's very few games available. Yeah. I was going to do a video about like how worthless the FIFA series is, because every time they release a new FIFA game, the last one goes down to like £1, and they're like 50 quid the year after. And I mean, is there really that much of a difference? And I remember going in there and I said, look, have you got the old FIFA games? Because I want to show them off on the camera and stuff like that. And they had to like get them out of the bin, where they were just like, they were throwing them away, and they were 50 quid the year before.
Yeah, and people aren't buying them. And it's wild too, because like people will ask like, why aren't your games in retail? And I'm like, well, they are, because the internet is retail. Like, you can buy them on Amazon or whatever. But it's like, if we wanted to go to a GameStop or a Best Buy, there's so many connotations. Like GameStop could just drop the damn price. Like, oh, it's not selling at 40, now it's a $20 game. And then so our entire, like, I mean, we're premium edition games, so we do too cool of stuff anyways. Like, we wouldn't be able to even do our slipcases and sleeves and some of the extra stuff we do. Like, we wouldn't be able to do it at retail. Best Buy is the only thing here, which is, basically like, it used to be the DVD and CD place, and you go there and get computers and things. That was the only place that still carries a decent selection of Switch, and it's a shell of what it was.
We've got Smiths, so that's kind of like the new Toys R Us for us.
Okay.
And Smiths with a Y, they have a tiny little video game section area, but it's not much more than 2, maybe 3 shelves, like unit parts of games. Normally because you got your Switch, your Xbox, and your PlayStation area, and that's it. And then probably about the same size, if not maybe a little bit bigger, you've got like Crash Bandicoot holding a controller, or illuminated PlayStation sign, or an Xbox mug, stuff like that. Those things tend to sell just as well, really.
Well, like from a historical perspective, though, it's going to be interesting to see where we progress to, because what I currently see is how we get independent games out there with what I do, or limited run games, or strictly limited, or super rare. Like what we're doing, like there's indie game stores, and some of them carry Switch, but there's these wholesale distributors that exist right now, and they're still like kind of forming, but they'll essentially buy games from us and then they have a network of indie retro game stores across their area. So we have
indie retro game stores. What do you mean by not people that sell indie games, but like
people that are independently owned business owners that run a
okay.
store, a resale store.
Yeah,
usually it's
we have retro game stores like that.
Exactly. And so some of them now are starting to carry Nintendo Switch. And so there are distributors in each area that will, get our games in bulk and then send them to the game stores. Instead of me having to cold call sales calls, having to cold call every single damn game store and see if they are interested in buying Switch games when they may not even carry Switch.
That's interesting.
And so they do that. So, we have a contact in Europe. We have one in Canada. We have one in the U.S. We have one over in Asia. And they do that with that. And once they realized what we were doing, they reached out to us. And, depending on quantity is what they get for a discount. And they order more bulk than any single game store. But then they just farm out to the game stores. So we've seen our stuff in game stores when in reality, that's the new retail.
Yeah, I imagine they only send, I don't know, significantly less amounts. Because, they're already limited anyway. So I imagine they get 10, 20 copies or so of a game.
And the thing is that, for premium, we don't purposely limit our stuff. We are a small company, not a limited company. So we don't try to, pry on any kind of FOMO or nothing like that. If 10,000 people want to buy Super Dungeon Maker, that Zelda Maker, we're going to make 10,000 copies and sell it to people and enjoy the game. However, production has to be, ordered and has to be cut off at some point. So we just do a pre-order window. We'll leave it up for about a month, and then we'll announce that it's going down, and everybody waits till the damn last minute because I don't know why, but they do. and then we move it forward. We've toyed with collector's editions and things and doing more limited releases, but so far we haven't found something that hits exactly how we want to do it, because we're not just going to follow the other companies and do what they do. We're what we call the hipster artist of publishers. So we want to just make really, really high quality, cool things. That's how we're going to stand out. We want to do our own thing.
That is the thing. I do notice some limited ones I've got down here. I've got the Castlevania one there from Limited Run.
Yeah.
And a few other ones. But with that, I've got the biggest one for Castlevania.
Yeah.
And there's obviously you get
box, right.
Yeah, they're the one with the shadow box.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's nice. But the problem with it is, that's the most expensive one, and I think there was 3 editions in total, with that one being the most, maybe even 4. And what they do is they take everything from that small one, and then the medium, and then the large, and then the biggest, and put them all into that biggest. So you end up getting loads of slipcases and stuff like that in there, and I'm like, but none of this makes sense to the big box. It's just they're just okay, then put that in, then put that in, then put that in, then put that in, just for the sake of putting it all in there. It's a bit weird. I'll tell you one of the craziest
Russian
ones.
nesting doll, that's what that is. Russian nesting.
Yeah.
We do a similar thing, honestly, because we've had more people complain that they're missing that one little item.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But the worst one, though, is I've got a Toe Jam and L from Limited Run. And in that one, you have a puzzle, and you build the puzzle, and it's the world. And then you've also got people to play with in the world, little pins. But you only get 2 of the, 10 pins. I'm like, this sucks, because I've spent 100 odd quid on this, and I don't have.
At that point.
Yeah, I want all of the pins.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this sucks. So what do I do? Do I have to find other people that want to sell me a bit of their collection? Obviously, no one's going to do that. So I don't know if anyone in the world, except unless you work at Limited Run, would have a complete Toe Jam and L pin collection, because I don't think they sold them individually.
See, to me, that's just it becomes less interesting and less fun if you can't just enjoy it. So you were looking. What were you looking at? I gotta see this. I gotta see this stuff right here, because he's going over to grab it. This.
Load the dust off that.
Oh, no dust. No dust at all. No dust at all.
Space Channel 5, the VR game.
Interesting.
This is funny. I'm like, what exciting things are they going to put in here? What is it going to be? This is going to be so amazing. Oh my God, this is going to be like nothing else ever. What is it? Get it out of the box without ripping it. It is a fidget spinner.
Oh my goodness, they gave you a pink and black fidget. Is it at least branded in the middle?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
At least it's branded. That is really, you're going to give us a fidget spinner?
I've got a poster as well. Obviously, you never put your posters up; they just stay in the box.
Yes.
A CD makes sense because it's obviously it's a very music heavy game. So yeah, I'm okay with the CD. And I tell a lie. It's not a CD. It's a CD case that's branded like a Dreamcast. There's no actual CD in there.
Interesting.
So if you want to take the game out,
did they just give you a code to download it digitally?
No, I think the game's in here. Is it? You know what? I don't know if it is.
They didn't even give you a game in the collectors.
No,
so
maybe
it's
I
Sonic
took it out of the
Mania.
box.
So it's
no.
Mania.
It is. It is up there. It is up there. It is up there.
They did the Sonic Mania, dude. Do you remember what they did with Nintendo Switch and Sonic Mania? Oh, Nintendo Switch, Xbox. And
oh yeah, the big one. I've got that somewhere.
Yeah, I got it too with the Mega Drive or.
What is that? I think it's in the attic.
With the Genesis Mega Drive with Giant Sonic on it, and
yeah.
it had a Genesis cartridge with a ring, but no game.
Mm-hmm.
And then they literally did Sonic Mania Plus later and released it on cartridge, but like that's not the original release, and it's a different game. Plus is
different. Yeah, the Space Channel 5, they did actually do a physical game. I've just taken out of the box. It's on the
but
shelf.
They didn't do a physical music CD, so they gave you like a digital download code for the music CD or something.
No, I don't think so. No, that CD is in case you want to put the PlayStation 4 game in a box to make it look like a Dreamcast case.
Oh my goodness.
So it is literally an empty jewel case.
And so it doesn't match anything that you have anywhere.
Especially, because it's an American Dreamcast case. And American Dreamcast cases are just jewel cases.
Black, yeah.
And our ones are actually really flimsy and hated, but there's some serious nostalgia for like the blue Dreamcast cases. They're completely different.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it's like, well, at least you can put that on your Space Channel 5 shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what that's for. Is like, and so do I create every release idea that somebody's going to have a dedicated shelf to that one game? Like that's
Super Blood Hockey shelf and stuff.
Yeah, the Super Blood Hockey shelf or the Raji, an Ancient Epic shelf, because that game right there, we're doing these little shadow puppets where in Indian folklore and in Indian history, they have like these little puppets that you put sticks on them and you can move them around. We created a set of shadow puppets from within the game.
That's freaking cool. That's cool.
Yes, you get the whole damn set if you get our collector's edition. You don't have to.
Beautiful.
Like we've done card sets and we didn't do a chase set. You get the whole card sets for Mighty Fight Federation.
Nice.
Yeah, that kind of stuff to me is like interesting. That the decisions that some people make, and it's like, well, do those companies really not do second, third order effects of like they don't think?
It's really painful. Like, so I am 8-bit. I'm known to hate on that company a little bit too much, but I don't want to hate on them too much because they've put out some good products. But one of my favorite games of all time, I'm a big fan of Metroidvanias, is Ori and the Blind Forest. And I went and bought the collector set from I Am 8-bit, which was like £200 dollars with postage. It's really not worth that. You get it and you're like, this isn't that great. Like it's an okay box, but that's probably the nicest thing is the box is okay. And I'm like, I don't know if I should have really bought this. I'm looking on my shelf. I've got some really obscure sets because I've got some that some companies send me as well. The Galgun ones. I've got one that comes with like a bra sort of thing or like a tank top sort of thing.
Wear it on a video.
I did it in my Amico video. Yeah.
Wear it in your video and do your old voice. Like, hello.
Yes. And you got the tentacle sleeves, which is like tights or stockings.
Yeah, stockings.
And I've got Panty Party, which comes with a pair of knickers.
Panty Party was the classic.
Panty is a pair of panties. Yeah.
Yeah, Panty Party was the classic one because that was done by East Asia Soft with the exclusives. And I think it was like number 8, 9, or 10 or whatever. And at the point, I was like, well, I'm not going to buy Panty Party because I'm not going to have my young daughter come across my collection and find panties sitting there.
Yeah.
Later on, I ended up buying it, just throwing it on the shelf and all that just to have them all. And then I stopped because they moved into visual novels, and I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've got maybe the first 12 or something like that. I've actually got a big PlayStation. That entire top shelf is all the East Asia Soft PlayStation ones.
Yeah.
I've even got Rive twice because I adore Rive. I think Rive's one of the best indie games out there. I adore that game.
That I'm working with East Asia Soft with some indie stuff now because Wife Quest that we just launched is an East Asia Soft title, and we're doing this.
Well, there we go. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So, but the thing is that I stopped around 12 too, and I'm 100% on your parallel with Metroidvanias though. Love Metroidvanias.
Love me some Metroidvanias for sure.
If I could sign more Metroidvanias for physical, I would. Obviously, we have Robot Named Fight, which is like one of my favorite games. And
oh, that's a good one. Yeah. I went through both Ori games. I adore both of those. Obviously, Axiom Verge is fantastic.
Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight is unbelievable. Unbelievably good. There were so many more.
What do you think of Dead Cells?
You know what? I didn't like it at first. I was like, you know what? I don't understand what everyone likes about this game. I wasn't too sure. I just couldn't get into it. And then I couldn't get into it. And then so I did the Castlevania Complete History and Contra Complete History. And they really, Konami reached out to me after that and they really liked the video. And then they've said, oh, do you want to do a video on the Turtles? Because we're doing Turtles. And I'm like, yeah. So I've worked with Konami a few times now, which is like a dream come true. Same with Sega. Yeah. And they reached out to the people that have Dead Cells and said, look, hey, get hold of this guy, me. And I did the Castlevania DLC video. I was like, right, I'm really going to give Dead Cells more time now, especially now they've got Castlevania. And I was like, fuck me, this is good. Like I got hooked.
Well, like our first episode back for Video Game Bullshit, that was our bullshit homework, was the Castlevania DLC for Dead Cells.
It was well good.
I don't know what the hell was wrong with me either, but I had played Dead Cells back in the day and I didn't get into it. I didn't even feel like the same game when I played it for the Dead Cells. It felt amazing, polished. I beat the whole game. I went through and I beat the whole DLC. Like, I don't do that, and I did it. I beat every ounce of that damn game. I didn't go and get the perfect ending. Like, you have to beat it a million times for that.
I haven't done the perfect ending.
Yeah, I want to say I got 3 or 4 times through where you keep on doing the difficulty. I think I was on whatever.
Yeah. Oh, it's a freaking incredible game. It's beautifully good. It's so good.
As everything goes, I had to move on, but which is pour a tear out. But like, awesome game. Like, man, that one like surprised me.
I was well impressed with that. And now I'm thinking
that video.
Yeah, if they if they do Metroid, a Metroid crossover now, that would be like probably one of the greatest indie games ever made. If they had like Metroid and Castlevania in the same universe.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Oh my gosh, like so.
Like the full Metroidvania name there in the same game, that'd be so sexy.
Dude, there's like, and the thing is like Metroid is its own beast, and there's some really great games that have the Metroid style of the Metroidvania versus the Castlevania style of the Metroidvania. I like that it's kind of splintered off into its action or adventure oriented feelers.
Yeah.
Little tentacles. As you had your knickers.
That was probably the last big game I completed, to answer your question earlier, actually. Metroid Prime, the remastered one. That was probably the last one I finished. That wasn't like an indie game.
We tried for bullshit homework. I ended up playing it on Prime Hacks on my Steam Deck because I didn't have the OLED at the time for Switch. And it looked muddy compared to my damn Switch with the vibrant deck and the saturation up. Like, it looked amazing. And I think I got to the point where I finally got the super jump, so I could do the double jump, and that's about where I got to.
Have you ever completed it?
No, I've never beaten Prime.
I had it on the GameCube.
Yeah.
I had it on the GameCube, and I didn't finish it. And then I bought it again for the trilogy set for the Wii, and that was the first time I ever completed it. Playing it with that Zelda controller, the Zelda crossbow controller, for me, that might have been the best way I've ever played it. Like.
Awesome.
It doesn't look as nice as the new Switch version, but playing that with those controllers, I was like, this is so good. It felt amazing. It took a little bit of time to get your head around the fact that you have to move the gun a little bit, but like, it was such a cool way to play that game.
Yeah, and so you were talking about like using certain aspects to make sure you play games. That's what we do for Video Game Bullshit, is our bullshit homework.
Yeah.
Bullshit. So like right now we're playing a game called Trinity Trigger. Which is like a Secret of Mana style game where you have like different, when you attack you have the cooldown meter and everything. Little grindy for my liking. I love my action RPGs.
I can't do RPGs. No. I hate games that force me to listen to story. before I get into the action. Like, just get on with the bloody game. Get on with the game.
There's not a lot of story in this one. This is more
that's fine.
streamlined. It's not really. There's voice acting in the story. I think you can skip it. But like, it's not super connecting. But of course, as soon as Friday hits, I'm moving over to Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm gonna try to spend some time. Gonna try to spend some damn time with that game, because I mean Zelda is definitely a big one. So
I'm looking forward to it. You know what? Like, I got it, and I remember at the time because there was so much hype for that game, Breath of the Wild, and I was like, I played it, and I was like, it ain't as good as everyone makes it out to be. Like, I probably never play this game again, and then I've thought about that game so much since I've played it, so it obviously did get its hooks into me. Yeah. And I keep thinking, like, I need to go back and play that game again. I need to go back and play it again. So obviously it had an effect on me. Just at the time, it was a bit. You
didn't have time.
I think maybe I was just like the buzz around that game. I was like, it's not as good as everyone's making it out. It's not as good, but now I want to go back and play it. So the fact that I very, very, very rarely play a big game more than once, it definitely means it was a good game, a really good game for me to want to do that.
Well, it's something similar, like where like I was playing. I've never gotten into like Dark Souls. Because I've never been able to get through the parry mechanics and all that stuff. However, when Elden Ring came out, it was like a perfect storm where my wife was not feeling well, so she was in the bedroom not utilizing the PS5 because she utilizes that and plays games herself. And so I was able to play Elden Ring the first week it came out, and I got sucked into that damn game hard.
Right.
One weekend. Never played it
I've still never played it. I've still never played it.
But it is really, really well done. It's probably the best one in that genre. But it's the same thing with Breath of the Wild. You got to dedicate like this infinite time that we don't have. And so it's like I got to make sure that I like kind of turn off everything. Because like there'll be some stuff that pops up for like premium I need to address. I'm gonna have to turn that crap off and dive into my Nintendo Switch and play some Tears of the Kingdom. When
a game like that comes around, it's so cool. It's such a rarity for people like me and you to really sit down and play games like that. Like if an Uncharted comes out, I do it to myself. Like I will sit down and like play Portal 2. I remember like every so often I just kept stopping and going, this game is so good. Like it blew me away.
But I've never played the Uncharted games.
Oh wow! Okay.
Like, I have them. I have them all.
Yeah.
Never played them.
Like they're good, especially number 4, but they're better if you've played them as they've come out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's what I've heard, and I never went back and jumped into it, and I'm like, I love Indiana Jones. I love that whole genre. I love the gameplay. I just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then it just moved past me. Same thing with Last of Us. Never got into those. And
I didn't finish I've never finished Last of Us. I don't think. No, I've never finished Last of Us. But I want to try again with the remaster of the remaster. I hate how many times they're remastering that game. It's ridiculous. Just make a new game. And
it's like it comes with the territory of creation. Like we're on a schedule or a timetable and we're making shit happen. So it's like we're doing that. Well, what we're not doing is playing anything for leisure. And so it's good to have things in there like you were streaming to force yourself to play. I'm doing the bullshit to force myself to play. I find myself finding new treats because I'm like, oh, well, I had some time to play. Let me use my randomizer and play something new.
That's cool.
And so I've gotten into a couple extra games that I wouldn't have normally. And the thing is too is that like on the other side, I've been testing so many games for premium that we have some stuff signed that's just freaking outstanding that we haven't announced. And like it's mind blowing stuff. Like I mean, hell, we signed Zelda Maker, like Super Dungeon Maker, that's right now for pre-order and everything. And like
that's so cool.
Amazing. And if that ever gets the Nintendo Zelda license, like there's a chance that they could because they were working on it. And if they do that, like then that's bucket list shit. Like working with Nintendo on a Nintendo game. Like, what the hell? What world are we living in now? And
what I want to get released physically for the Nintendo Switch, and I don't know if you'd ever be able to do this. I don't know. Like if you're already talking about the fact that you might be able to work with Nintendo one day, maybe. Mm-hmm. I want those Sega Ages games that they released, like the 10 of them they released digitally on a physical cartridge. I want those so bad. Even if you did volume 1, 2, and 3 or whatever, however they come out, they are beautiful ports of those classic games. I know they've been done before 1,000 times, like M2 redoing Sonic 1 again for the next system or whatever else, but they're so damn good, especially Virtua Racing.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, they're like a definitive port of those, which is the interesting piece from a preservation perspective. Those would be the interesting ones to own.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, if there's a will, there's a way. Like, I mean, reason why I've been able to make shit happen, I'll ask them and let them tell me no. And sometimes you get a yes.
Yeah, like, for sure.
It took 10 years for Nintendo to tell me yeah for publishing, so but I was persistent.
Yeah.
Made that shit happen, man. And so one thing that was interesting is, you were saying that you had, how was I gonna word it? I lost my damn train of thought. But I was thinking you were talking about making time for things and not having time, and then moving on to stuff. I was gonna ask what your favorite of something in particular was, and I lost my train of thought. So let's go. Your favorite. You said favorite genres. So what was your favorite game growing up? We'll go really deep.
I mean, I suppose like from in the 90s perspective, it'd always be. I was sucked into the platforming mascot games.
Yeah.
Were huge. I did quite enjoy like 3D mascot ones, but for me it was like the 2D ones were really something else.
Okay.
Loved them. I mean, I was a bit of a mummy's boy, so when I played on like the Amstrad CPC, the games were, to be quite frank, for the most part, pretty terrible. You know, it's the same with the Atari games in America. You know, like you get some good ones in there, you definitely do, but for the most part, it's shovelware. The only difference is the ones over here in the UK, when you buy an Amstrad game, it only costs you a couple of quid, so you don't feel burnt. That's why one of the reasons we didn't get a video game crash. And also we were so tight you could just copy your mates with a double tape recorder. Like, job done. You can make like a mixtape of your favorite games that you've just stolen off your mate. But yeah, I remember seeing an NES, I think, and it was even Mario, and I'm like, it's good, not as good as my Amstrad games though. And I was convincing myself these Amstrad games were better than Mario, which they definitely were not. They definitely were not. It's not Roland in the Caves, is it? Or Bridget, or Oh Mummy. So like, yeah, I for some reason I convinced myself that these crappy games were not as good. But then when I saw when I went to a fireworks event in 1990, possibly 91, for Halloween. And it was quite scary. There was people there dressed as Freddy Krueger and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go on this bus here, this Sega bus, whatever that is. And I went in there, and on the bottom floor, they had like the Moonwalker game, and they had Chuck Rock and a few other games like that. And I was like, they're pretty cool. And they said, oh, go and play the new Sonic game upstairs. I've never seen Sonic before in my life. And I was like, I can't hide it anymore. This game is so good. I was like blown away by how good Sonic the Hedgehog 1 was. I was like, this is next level good. And I remember like my granddad coming in to see me, and he goes, aren't you supposed to jump in that ring at the end of the level? I'm like, no, that just means you got rings. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, first time I'd ever played a game like that, I was like, this is amazing. And that Christmas I got a Mega Drive, and Genesis as they're known in America, and I was just like, yeah, this is it. Like,
so it was interesting. So growing up with, you said you grew up with the Amstrad, right?
Amstrad, yeah.
Amstrad. I grew up with the Commodore 64.
Sweet.
Same deal. So I had an Atari 2600, but we had the Commodore 64 is what I played. Somehow, my brother had loads and loads of bootleg games. Don't know how the hell the internet, without the internet,
well,
how the hell he got that shit.
Yeah. That's yeah.
From a historical perspective, dig that one out. How was the trading scene at that point where my brother is part of a computer club or whatever the hell he was doing, because he was graduated high school in '89.
I had like, maybe it was more like friends of my parents and their kids.
Yeah. And
obviously some of the friends of the parents that also played on Amstrads. There was maybe possibly even up to 10 of us, or at least 7 or 8 of us that had Amstrads. And when one of us bought a game, the other 8 people would get that game.
I mean, like, we had 4 legit games, and then the rest we had hundreds of bootlegs.
We had a lot of legit games, to be fair, but
but it was
more
like crazy because they were expensive here. There's no budget titles.
Yeah.
So like it was expensive as hell. But the interesting thing was did you do what I used to do as a kid growing up with the Commodore 64? Because the load times were insane.
Oh, they were absurd, and hopefully it would load. Sometimes it wouldn't.
And so, like, what we would do is, we do the load, shift into star, shift into comma 1, hit load for Commodore, it starts loading.
Oh, I love it.
And as it goes, we're sitting there playing board games. We're playing crossbows and catapults and shooting and setting up stuff and playing board games. And they're like, oh, there's music, let's go look. And we go over to the screen. And
I imagine it was... I imagine it was like comics for me, like the Beano we had here in the UK.
Yeah.
So our Dennis the Menace in the UK is different than the Dennis the Menace in America.
Yeah.
America's Dennis the Menace with the blonde hair and dog. We had like red and black checkered, essentially a bully when you look back at him.
Yeah,
Dennis the
bully.
You had him and the Bash Street Kids and Minnie the Minx and Billy Whiz and stuff like that. And I would always read my annuals and my Beano comics.
Okay.
Probably. Maybe I did other things. I don't know.
I just remember we used to go over and so I would go over to a friend's house and they would have the Commodore too. We both had Commodores. So, I mean, there was definitely some trading going on, and my brother and my friend's brother, her brother, were in high school together. So then we both used their then we'd play board games and stuff at their place. At my house, I think it was action figures. So we'd be playing Ninja Turtles, or back in the day, like G.I. Joe and He-Man before Ninja Turtles. Playing all that stuff as we're waiting for games to load. And, And it's just like playing.
I'll probably play action figures as well, actually, thinking about it. Yeah,
and I think
probably that He-Man and stuff.
I think that's where my love of like these short play games, like playing summer games and doing diving, and if you kept playing the game, it didn't load, so you can keep playing it and shaving off and getting a better score.
Yeah, the old gold, silver, bronze. Yeah, summer games, winter games.
I mean, like I got the world record on some of those games. Like for
oh
me.
wow.
And I've submitted them to Twin Galaxies right before it folded, and like they didn't think my video quality was good enough or whatever. But like I set,
mate.
And I mean my records were better than what I set. I'm like, oh well, here's my. I show them like, here's my world record from the '80s. Here's what I'm sitting right now, and it's like, and eventually I get like a perfect score or something. It was just,
that's freaking
but
cool.
it was like, but I would sit there and just keep grinding on it, and I still do that to this day with like Mike Tyson's Punch Out and Super Punch Out. We had literally done a Soda Popinski for video game bullshit for bullshit homework last week. We were trying to beat Tyson, and whoever could beat Soda Popinski the fastest, because one of our co-hosts, Tristan, he hates Soda Popinski. I found out a way with 5 button moves to knock his ass down in every round.
That's cool.
And so I was just trained, and that was the cool thing with Nintendo Switch Online and the rewind function. I can train on him. So I can sit there and rewind and train and see where I can possibly maximize my stuff, and then I'll play through the whole thing and try to do the thing. I think I got it down 1 minute and 8 seconds in the first round, and that's without any glitches or nothing, because I think they used glitches to get the world record faster. But I didn't do any glitches. But yeah, it was fun because one of the other co-hosts, Coffin, he was like, "Yeah, I got minute 10." He's like, "Get this," and he's drinking soda in his picture, and I'm like. And I like 2 seconds later, here's a minute 8. And he's like, "Aw." I was like,
that's cool.
Pretty sure I could shave off 2 more seconds. And he's trying all week and he couldn't do it. And it was like
the only time I've ever got really competitive with gaming, 15, something like that, about 15 years old, maybe a little bit younger than that, 14, 15, 16, around that time. I just stopped playing video games entirely. For about a year and a half, maybe nearly 2 years, and the only game I played obsessively was Wipeout 2097 on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
I became obsessed with DJing, like absolutely obsessed with DJing.
I mean, that's where
every single day.
Up, right?
That's where that comes from. Yeah. So like, so I would just DJ every night, and then I'd play Wipeout 2097, which is it's got a hardcore electronic soundtrack with like the Prodigy on there and stuff like that. So I was just obsessed with that sort of stuff.
It's great stuff, and it's interesting too because that generation also sucked me in with Wave Race 64 and Mario Kart 64, and I was because I did something like much later because one of the things was I got my collection back after I moved back from Europe, and my memory card for Wave Race had every world record set.
Oh wow!
Like I looked at it and I'm like, these are faster than I couldn't replicate them because I didn't know what the hell I was doing anymore. But back in the day, I had played that game so much and just enjoyed it so much because we used to play that, but then listen to music in the background because when
yeah.
the soundtrack, it's not like Wipeout. And so like yeah, dude, that was wild though.
There it is. There's my CD soundtrack for Wipeout 2097.
Nice, that is cool.
It's actually the sample products one, the one that you're not supposed to sell.
Oh, well, you got it then. You didn't buy it.
Yeah, it has somehow ended up in a charity shop, and it has literally. I mean, the disc. It has never been played. It is crystal. But I my if it was my one from back in the day, it wouldn't even be readable at all. It was completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because like CD players mauled the discs back then. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
There they are, the Prodigy. Chemical Brothers.
See,
that was the sound of my.
Look at that.
Yeah, it is like. Well, Keith Flint died like a few years back.
Yeah.
One of the few people I never got the ability to go see. I've seen most of my like hardcore favorite musical artists, but I never got to meet him before he died. I adore the Prodigy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a crap ton of because I go more toward classic rock. I got used to pretty.
Yeah, sure.
But I listen to metal, but I also listen to I listen to Prodigy and all that too, like Rage.
Oh yeah, well I DJ'd for many years at Download Festival here in the UK, so I'd have to play a lot of the classic rock, and that's where I met a lot of famous people, like a crazy amount of artists, Korn and stuff.
Who's the most mind blowing artist that you met?
Korn was up there probably. Benji from Skin Dread actually sung for me on there. Jack Black, which was pretty fucking awesome. And I actually got him to say, "This is this is Jack Black. You're listening to DJ Slope," which is pretty cool. That was just before he went on.
When you do a Mario video, you should have him on there.
Exactly. I got him. I used it in my Pitfall video. Slipknot, Slipknot, Corey Taylor,
nice.
Probably loads of others. I watched Black Sabbath with Kelly Osbourne, which is really cool. Basically, like, so I DJ'd backstage, but that didn't mean I was part of the entertainment. No, that meant I was entertainment. That didn't mean I was an artist. So I could get to a certain section where I could basically, it was called the RIP instead of VIP. So you could go in there, but all of the artists would just come in anyway. So I'd be DJing for bands, which was like quite, shit, all these amazing bands. In fact, this, as a classic rock fan, you're like this. This was taken from Iron Maiden's on-site pub that they made.
Ooh.
So this is actually from there at Download Festival. I actually took that from there. That was from their own personal little pub that they set up backstage. But all you had to do, there was like a kitchen between us, and I could just say, "Can I just walk through the kitchen and put my CDs over there?" And they're like, "Yeah." You walk through, and now you're in the artist area. And I'm like, "Okay." And you just walk around, and you meet Korn, and you meet all of these other bands, and Triple H was there once, and all of these all of these people, more people than I can. I remember I was obsessed with Pendulum for a short while, and I like almost toured with them, like going around following them from gig to gig, and they were just standing there. So I went to Germany to go to Rock am Ring, and then I went to Download Festival the weekend after. So it was like literally get back on the Wednesday, have one night sleep at home, and then go straight off to Download Festival. And somewhere along the line, I lost my wallet. So I managed to get like 200 quid off my mum, I think it was. And then I'd spent it all. And what they did a souvenir, they did a recycling initiative. If you collected 5 paper cups, they'd give you £1. So every time we run out of beer, we would just go and get another 20 cups. Hey, more beer. And that was it. That was just how we spent our weekend. Just picking up litter, drinking beer, picking up litter, drinking beer,
Interesting for them to clean up.
Yeah. So, Yeah. That's what we did. And I remember I met Pendulum, and I was like, "Oh my god, you guys are Pendulum!" And I was shaking their hand, and they were just so out of their face. Like, they weren't drunk, they were on drugs. And they said, "Oh, are you gonna have beers? Are you gonna have a beer?" And I'm like, "Mate, I actually don't have any money." I'm like DJing backstage, but I don't have any money. And they went, "Oh, here you go." And they just gave me this beer like off the table. I'm like, "Oh my god, Pendulum just bought me a beer." Like, and I was obsessed with him at the time. And I was like, "I don't want to drink this, I want to freeze this." Like,
Freeze this moment in time.
yeah. It was crazy. It was crazy. I'll send you, in case you want to add it in there, the picture of when I met them. Like, you'll see how destroyed they are facially, like the big black pupils and.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So, question for you: what
Go for
is that moment for Slope's Game Room?
Probably when I went to go to Sega. It was probably when I went to Sega. Yeah. I've been to Sega a few times. The first time I went there, it was just like, I can't believe I'm here. But I remember once when they were releasing the Mega Drive Mini, they invited me and Kim Justice and Larry Bundy and stuff. And I remember like there was, and we were streaming the games live. And I'm like, you have to sit back and you think to yourself, I'm playing Mega Drive games at Sega and then shipping it out to the world. So if you go search Sega online, you'll see me playing Mega Drive games for you. I was like, that is such a mind-blowing moment. It was such a I've made it moment. Another time was when I was angry at Sega because they sometimes told me by the way, this thing's coming out, you can't tell no one. Yeah, and they didn't tell me about Streets of Rage 4. And that's like one of my all-time favorite games, Streets of Rage. But for some reason, they didn't tell me Streets of Rage 4. Maybe because they knew I was just so obsessed with that franchise. And I was like, whoa, Streets of Rage 4 is coming out. So I reached out to the Streets of Rage 4 people. One of the people there, one of the main programmers. And they said, I was like, look, I am obsessed with Streets of Rage. If there's anything I can do, even to help promote it or anything, please let me know. I'm so excited for this game. And they said, "Oh, we know who you are. We all watched the video before we started production on the game. My video on Streets of Rage." I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, I don't want to. Obviously, you know, I'm glorifying it in my head that I was an inspiration or anything like that. But no, I know it wasn't that. But I know for the fact that people that worked on that game talked about, you know, collaboratively watched my video as inspiration for the game in some regard and looked at what they needed to put into the game because of what was seen in my video, or, you know, among other things. But I was just like, that was a big mind-blowing moment for me. And finally, again, when I was at Sega, Konami's another big one. The fact that Konami know who I am and they always ask me to be a part of what they do. When they release retro type collections.
Konami inspiration in the VGBS logo.
Yes. And the other one was when Sega invited me again to their offices to play Choo Choo Rocket, the new Choo Choo Rocket game that they were releasing. So I'd done a history video on Choo Choo Rocket. A bit of a shorter one because there's really not a lot to talk about. But I did a video on it. And when I met some of the developers, they said yes, because we didn't know really much about the history. We played your video to like an auditorium of people to explain the history of Choo Choo Rocket. I'm like, this is nuts. This is insane. So loads and loads of moments like that. When I once got contacted by the people that made Zombies Ain't My Neighbors and said they loved what I do. And they just like, you know, started talking to me. I'm like, these people are coming to me. These people are coming to me. So things like that. Like that.
It's mind blowing. I've actually had people come to me from books I've released. I'm like, who am I? Like, I just released some books, some.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, but I started programming brand new indie games because I read your Oddities and Homebrew Revolution book back in the day, and you're talking about the entire history and all. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Or if you're do you know the Boom Tetris for Jeff meme for the Tetris World Championships?
I don't know that. No.
It's a weird one. So at Portland Retro Gaming Expo in Portland, Oregon, they do the Tetris World Championships, the finals. So it's like the big online Tetris Championships. And every year they have Chris Tang on there, who won the Sega World Championships in Hawaii, but also participated in the Nintendo World Championships. And he does commentary. I was his guest commentator one year. And I was doing commentating. I was like, wrestling pun. I was going to be his Bobby the Brain Heenan, be his color man, and do a bunch of crazy stuff, get him all hyped up. So we were doing all this. Right before the finals, I had eaten a taco and my throat closed. And I was like, I basically had to make myself puke so I could breathe, all this stuff. But I was loopy as hell. It was like I had drank a bottle of whiskey. I was wiped out.
Right.
I went on. The show must go on. And I said crazy shit during that finals to the point where it got memed. And if you look up Boom Tetris Jeff, there are memes where I'm saying piecement places. We say neck and neck like a million times, and the guy who got second place has a giant neck with an Adam's apple, and they kept zooming in like that shit went viral. It's to the part where some of my young, like 18, 19-year-old coworkers that I currently work with knew of the meme but didn't know I did it. And then when they saw it, they're, holy shit, that's freaking you! Like, I was the dude who did the piecement places and all this crazy stuff. They got on ESPN because of the viral recognition, because they got over 8 million views.
That's awesome.
There's a whole generation of new...
I totally do know this. I'm looking this up. It's been a while, but yeah, I know this.
I'm the dude. And like, I was at Portland selling my damn books, and Sunday I had to close down so I could do this tournament, and I couldn't sell any books that time, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna go do it because I know the guys who run the Tetris thing. They're cool as hell. I'll go shoot this shit with them. We went out drinking the night before or whatever, and I had already planned to do the commentating because I've done podcasting forever. I have a mass comm minor, run radio shows. I can shoot the shit, no problem. And I know Tetris like the damn back of my hand. However, drunk Tetris is a different story.
Right.
And I was just getting like Chris Tang was just going boom Tetris for Jeff, boom Tetris for Jeff, boom, like he was going nuts. And that thing though got so much coverage, it went viral, it inspired that right now they have like 13 and 14-year-olds that are currently doing scores. They can infinitely play Tetris. Because there's a whole Tetris documentary called Ascendancy of Order where they talk about the max you can potentially do and all this stuff. Well, they figured out new techniques where you can like roll the controller backward and they can move faster than you can move with pressing the buttons. Like you just roll it. And they're like doing this with the thing. They saw me at a convention in Waco last year, and I was a freaking celebrity. And I'm like, wait, I was that jerk who couldn't say the placement of the pieces. Like, what do you... They're like, no, that viral thing is how I found out about this scene. It's how I got into it. I was like...
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Like, that kind of stuff is like, it's a bucket list. So you're going to be an inspiration with your video of the Mega Drive with Sega's Heck, because people saw you. Like, new generation of Sega gamers would have seen potentially you playing that like that's the stuff that's cool. That's what makes it fun. You know what I mean? Like,
one of the latest things for me is I might be helping make a new version of a classic game that I've talked about. I can't say much yet, but like they want me to come in essentially in a producer role. Nice. But it's I don't know if it's been labeled that, but essentially that's what it's coming in at. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah.
If I know of the game, I might be able to place my finger on which one you're talking about. Mayhaps. Because I know about just stuff that's in the pipeline. There's some Sega-inspired stuff that I know about. Cool.
There is. I won't say what it is or what it isn't. Yeah.
We can talk off recording, of course, but like cool. But yeah, no, that's awesome. And again, it's like it's cool stuff to be involved in, and it's fun. It's one of the most enjoyable things because it's like my thing that always blew my mind is I go to all these conventions as a guest. I'm like, I'm a freaking publisher, author. Like I'm not a YouTuber. I don't make content, but in reality, I do make content in a different form. And
exactly.
Like I never think of it like that, but it's like, oh yeah, and I know a lot of freaking people, yourself included. Like I just know people from years and years. I think we had talked just because you had that weekly Kickstarter thing, and I had some Kickstarters going on or something like that, or I had knowledge.
I think that's how it started. Yeah, absolutely.
Something simple like, and I knew Larry Bundy forever, so him and his Pathy and Us punk had buddy, and that's always fun.
Yeah, they're not the biggest fans of each other. They don't like each other. Well, they're best of friends.
And the one thing is that no matter what community you go into, there's always naysayers. There's in the book publishing companies, the NES homebrew stuff, in physical spaces, physical Switch publishing. There's always people that are negative. The one thing I always do is just ignore it. I don't respond online. Does it piss you off or does it get you? Sure. But who doesn't? If somebody tells you you're an asshole, like, of course it's going to get to you. But
yeah. I do feel bad because there's a lot of people out there that suffer with like depression or suffer with like not being able to know how to handle that sort of stuff.
And they feel like they need to drag you down so they can build themselves up, and it's like.
But I mean, like, as people, content creators that won't be able to handle the negativity.
Yes.
Yeah, and I do feel sorry because I think you do need to be able to live with you need to have a thick skin to kind of do any job where you're going to get to a point where you have a massive audience.
And when you put yourself out there, people criticize. Hell, even on here, they might get you the the two fingers.
Even if you're not in that world, say you're just like a normal, just say you're your average Joe that has maybe 30 friends, 40 friends. Out of those 30, 40 friends, you'll also have a few people that don't like you. Now you got to times that by 100 or 1,000 or whatever when you start getting into becoming a YouTuber or a book publisher or whatever it may be. Yeah, any kind of content. And then you're going to have essentially hundreds of people that don't like you, and out of those hundreds of people, you will have a small minority of people that go out of their way to make you feel bad about yourself, and you need to be able to have thick skin. You need to be able to take on the criticism, which is fine, constructive criticism, but you need to be able to understand not take it to heart. And I do feel for people.
Taking the higher road, never responding. It's like I'll never trash a competitor on something because there's no reason to. There can never be enough preservation going on in video games, or never enough books on Sega or Nintendo, or there can never be enough videos doing history of things. If somebody else does a history of Streets of Rage, hopefully they have something different that you may not have thought of from a different perspective. That would be cool. That would be amazing. And hopefully they use a gruff voice, really gruff voice.
There it is.
But you know what I mean, though. That's just how it is. And so one thing that I was thinking of, and I did figure out what I was going to ask you, which I moved circling back.
Go for it.
What was the most challenging video or project that you've done?
Amico. And people ask that question all the time. 100% it was the Amico.
Really? Is it because the personal nature? Is it because the guy
everything
Tommy Tellerica reaches out to everyone with a personal approach?
I mean, before that, it would have been. Other videos have taken a long time. Like Castlevania took an incredibly long time, and Pac-Man took a long time to make. Literally a couple of months at least. But the Amico video not only took about 4 months to make. I mean, I knew a lot of stuff beforehand that made it easier, and if I didn't know that, it would have taken even longer. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to add that into the equation, but I had a personal connection into it with the fact that I interviewed him and kind of fell for the whole thing. I am the guy that points out the scammers. Like, oh, you want to be careful of that guy. Come on, it's so obvious. Look at that scammer right there. And then it got me. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that I feel like at the beginning they had good intentions, but they didn't understand the scope. They didn't understand the scope. They really didn't. Because the thing is, if you understand scope and how to scale up a production cycle, I've been running publishing for 10 years. They did a lot of things wrong. They went after a lot of things wrong, and even having the damn workspace with all the wasted money, you gotta.
It's insane. I know I keep bringing up the fact that I've been to Sega. I'm not trying to flex when I say that. I've been to quite a few different developers and stuff like that, and publishing houses, to their actual offices, and some of them are literally houses converted into offices where they're so small. I'd say Sega was probably the biggest one that I've personally visited, and even though it was set on a few different floors, there were other businesses in that building. It wasn't, you go in there, and even though it was on separate floors and it had nice branding, in the kitchen there was a whole wall that looked like Jet Set Radio artwork and stuff like that. Even though they had all of that sort of stuff, I would say, looking at the footage I've seen from the Amico video, their offices look more lavish, which is insane.
Yes, exactly.
Insane.
Because, as a startup for Premium Edition, and I was running a business for 10 years prior with the books at a much smaller level, we're pinching pennies. We're making sure we can do everything at the highest quality and continue to do it while not robbing from Peter to pay Paul. Because you have to do that in business a little bit, where you have to use the cash flow to continue the business, but you don't want to make that your damn business model. And they were robbing from Peter to pay Paul to run the lavish offices and do all the, the craziness. And like, to me, there was a lot of misguided, like they maybe bought into their own hype a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, like there was just so many levels to that whole thing that made it hard for me. One, Tommy Tallarico was I keep not wanting to say the word hero, but he was probably about there.
Really good dude. At one point, really good dude, and he's part of
and that's I reckon because I went to school. My primary school only had like 70 odd kids in it in the entire school.
Okay.
I mean that's from the age of 3 to the age of 10. 70 kids for that whole year, that whole section of school. So in my year, the biggest year had about 11 kids in it. The year above me had 2. The year below me probably had 4. And sometimes we would merge these classes together because it was such a tiny little Christian school. And every single person, at least within those groups, had a Sega system. No one had Mega Drives. I remember seeing an NES, I think, but I'm not even sure I knew a Super Nintendo existed until I got to secondary school, because it just wasn't, no one had one, at least in my small niche of people. And then I lived in the sticks, so I couldn't go and visit other people.
You can hear the dogs when my daughter's home.
Oh, right, okay. So, everyone had Sega systems. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, so I would be obsessed with looking into like who made the games. And I found about Tommy Tallarico. And I remember hearing the Global Gladiator soundtrack and going, this is so good, this soundtrack, yeah, cool, that like jokey, a bit memey music now that's in Global Gladiators. But I was like, this is freaking amazing.
That's the second
coming out of
the used for the intro, by the way.
Yeah, there it is. It was so good. I think I knew the name Tommy Tallarico before I definitely knew the name Tommy Tallarico before I knew the name like Shigeru Miyamoto and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Because I didn't really know much of Nintendo.
Level, yeah.
Yeah, I knew of that name before him, and to the point where it wasn't just someone I knew that made games. I was like, wow, he's actually quite a cool dude. I was only a kid at the time and looking at interviews. I didn't really have much to go on. This one magazine I'd buy every month. I knew who Yu Suzuki was. Yu Suzuki, Yuzo Koshiro, I meant, and eventually Yu Suzuki. And they were like the 3 people I really knew until I probably got to the next generation of consoles, and then I started learning more about gaming. But yeah, I really, really followed people like David Perry. So yeah, he was from gaming, might have been the first name in gaming that I knew of.
Well, and so the one interesting piece, though, is that you shouldn't feel as bad as you may think, because if you put things into perspective, because you have to put it into perspective, right? So compare something like the Amico. It's nowhere near as bad as the Chameleon.
I don't know. I mean,
because the Chameleon, I feel like, was mishandled, where they never even had an idea of what they were going to do, to the point where when they even went to the New York Toy Show, they had a
they had a Super Nintendo thing inside it.
That they hadn't even gotten to the conceptualization phase. But when they were the retro VGS, they had even approached me as an unknown, a brand new publisher, about releasing my NES homebrew game that I was having made in conjunction for the retro VGS, physically.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, sounds great.
I get that.
But the thing is that they didn't even have a concept many, many years later when they rebranded the Chameleon. Like,
I've got a whole book about the failure of that system called Smoke and Mirrors that I'm going to one day turn into a video.
Yeah.
But
because to me, the Chameleon at least had a backbone to it, where it was something that was going to run in a console. They just had no production experience to be able to scope it up to actually release the thing. And in reality, I feel like...
You're about the Amico, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, the Amico, my bad. But yeah, the Amico, I feel like with the Amico, they didn't have a way to scope it up and scale it up to go out and do what was not needed. Because as we had talked about earlier, modern publishing and modern retail's gone. Best Buy, GameStop, they're gone. They're a shell of what they were. So the fact that they were trying to scale up this production to ship it to stores across the world, that makes no damn sense. They should have done, intimate pre-orders, lost a little profit on this because they had to do it in smaller batches at the beginning and get it out there. That's what they should have done.
Yeah, I mean, so I do understand what you're saying, because obviously the big thing was the fact that when it went to the trade show, there was the Super Nintendo in a case.
For the Chameleon, yes.
For the Chameleon. And then obviously when people called them out on that, they said, no, here it is. And they'd done that top-down view in the see-through case, and then it ended up being like a capture card or something. Instead of actually, it was all fake. But from that point on, it died down. And then it was just such a laughing stock. There was no way they were ever going to get any further than that.
They were done.
And I felt like that came and went quite quickly.
Yeah.
Where this is still going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it hasn't. Because the thing is, until they officially say they're done, they're not done. And that's the interesting pieces. There's still
I know a few things behind the scenes, which I can't say about yet.
Yeah.
But
the story,
and I know from the people. I mean, and I'm not going to go down the route of Tommy and say, something is coming soon or anything like that. But I know that information is going to come. Sure. What I know, I'm just waiting for other people to say it. The people that are allowed to say it can say it. And
my daughter's making.
It's not the end. Hey,
London. We're recording.
Cool.
High five.
I'm in the podcast now.
Okay. You can't talk.
I know that. With what I know, it's still not the end.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think Tommy is smart enough because he's not really involved anymore as much as he was.
He's going on backgammon competitions and stuff now. He's and back on Video Game Live and stuff.
Well, yeah, because I mean, he overextended himself and he wants to rebuild his reputation and his historical, history and historical relevance, maybe. But But the thing is that there's still a chance that they're going to release this sucker and they could turn around. They just need to get.
It's nuts to say that, but you're not wrong.
It's because the thing is, all they have to do is release it and then take all the criticism into effect and maybe modify a few things that are realistic.
By that point, it'll be dead. I mean, now it's dead. The fact
they're never going to break out of the financial hole they're in, but they may still be able to release an Amico.
Yeah,
it won't be the same as they promised.
Because that was always my biggest gripe. Like everyone's like, "No, Dan, it's fake. It's rubbish. It's vaporware." And I'm like, "But it's obviously not." Because this is explaining up my mindset at the time. Mm-hmm. But back when I was a supporter for this thing, it's not, because people have played it. Yeah. And people that I trust, and I don't mean like new people that have come along like Tommy Tallarico. Oh my God, I used to remember you from being from when I was a kid. I'm on about people that I've trusted throughout the years as YouTubers, have played it. They've personally told me I have played on this system. Yeah. Not just this one system. Like there are obviously there's not maybe like 20 out there or something like that, but they do exist.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, is that they needed somebody with a keen eye doing quality control on game acquisitions. Because, in all honesty, like, you had Finnegan Fox, which was a reskin of another game.
Fox and Forest.
Yep. And you had Earthworm Jim coming. And everything else looks like a mobile game. And because the controllers look like damn iPods, you had the comparison, and I'll tell you, modern gamers don't want to play games that look like they could be played on a phone. So it's
and no.
Themselves in the foot though, because
and no, because I mean we talked about on this about the fact that we've put an absurd amount of hours into Vampire Survivors and Binding of Isaac, and you can play those on phones.
True story. Vampire Survivor is on phones now. Yeah, and so like they just needed every game to be a banger. They needed every game to be an S tier. And it's tough because I you know what, like I've got the Wii U next to me at the moment, but normally that's set up in my living room to play games that are on that system. We're really big fans of multiplayer games, like get guys around, have a few beers and play like these one of the games on Nintendo Life is literally it. Like you're it, well, and that's the game, but it's so much fun. That's the theory behind the Amico that I loved. Is that they were trying to bring back their couch co-op aesthetics, And the thing was is that they were like so close. You know what I mean? It was just like there were a few things that I feel like. I mean, obviously the mismanagement, like that's a big. That's where you're.
It is a few things, but one of those few things is mismanagement. And when you look at mismanagement, it's the entire umbrella that's
you do
the bad thing.
Mismanagement and it scopes out to millions of dollars, like it's madness. And
yeah.
The thing is, the numbers that you were talking, because I'm on the publishing side now, it's not super out of scope crazy, because like I do my taxes over here in the States, and shit is mind blowing how much it costs to publish for Switch. But it's like, if I mismanage something, like it's done. Like you can't.
Yeah.
You have to be careful. And I'm a small little company. I'm not at the scale of what Amico needs to do. And so it's that right there is probably their major thing. But the little things is how they can possibly turn this sucker around.
I mean, hindsight's a brilliant thing, and I would have loved to have played on this.
I got an armchair quarterback, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's a great thing, but I think from the get-go, pretty much everyone was saying this should have been games for other systems, because my argument from what you said there is, people still do like playing these basic looking games that you can play on mobile phones, because people put hundreds and thousands of hours into things like Binding of Isaac, Vampire Survivors, and other games like that. I'm one of them. I have a £500 or whatever it is Switch deck and play £2 games on it. Like,
and
it is what it is.
Is accessibility too. So the cell phone games make more money than anything. But the thing is, it's because you have it in your pocket at all times. So the Switch has the portability.
The good thing,
Steam Deck has the portability. They're asking us to put a new console in our living rooms, and the key is you got to have some killer apps. You have to have a reason, just like Wii Sports. You gotta have a reason for everybody to put that sucker in your house. And
the good thing is, I mean, would I buy a Steam Deck if I knew that you could only play Vampire Survivors and Binding of Isaac and stuff like that? I probably wouldn't. I know I want to be able to play the big games, but I also like the ability to be able to play those small games as well. And the Amico is only the small games.
It's only the small games.
And I know, like
Switch, because Switch is a generation behind technically, but you have Nintendo IPs. Those are that's important to a lot of fanboys and fangirls. Like that is a huge thing, being able to play your Zeldas and your Marios. And so but I feel like if another company did that, like Sega did one, it wouldn't be as crazy, even though they have Sonic.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not as diehard, which is crazy to say, but they're not. And the fact is that that's Sega. It's not like Intellivision.
Exactly. Exactly. In television, my biggest argument to Tommy, even from the day dot when I was a supporter of this thing, I would say to him, like, you do realize that no one knows what the Intellivision is in the UK. Like, you can go to like Primark, which is like like a random clothes shop we have here in the UK, and you can buy like a T-shirt that has the word Sega on it, or a T-shirt that has the Atari 3 lines on it, and things like that. And people will kind of know, oh, that's that computer thing. If you had something that had the word Intellivision on it, you would have to be walking through a room full of geeks for them to know what that is.
It's really relevant because of the Amico, and because the thing is that over here in the States it was VCS, Atari 2600. That's what it was. And then you had some of the cool kids that had the Colecovision because it had cooler colors. It was always more bright.
Yeah.
And you'd have some better looking arcade ports on there. And then Intellivision was the crappier versions. I
always remember, I thought Intellivision had like some really good versions of games. They didn't have
Coleco for me.
Coleco
was cool. For me, Intellivision was always like the downpour. So you compare all the versions of Donkey Kong or all the versions.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The third party games or whatever wouldn't be as good.
From a historical perspective. Some of that is like they ported it. Like Coleco's the one who ported Donkey Kong, and the television one's crappy because they didn't want to sell as much as theirs. Like there's some of that in there.
From my understanding, and again, I'm going from what I've heard Americans say and from what I've experienced in like collections and stuff like that. So we didn't have it here in the UK, but from my understanding, it was like a lot of the sports titles like baseball and stuff like that would be better on Intellivision compared to Atari.
Yeah, it was a little bit better, but again, you're talking pixels. Hitting the ball.
Yeah. Well, they did the same thing that Sega did when they released the Mega Drive. Like when well, not released, but like during the Mega Drive's life, everyone was waiting for the Super Nintendo to come out, and then Sega would go around malls in America, shopping centers, and basically have the new Nintendo, Super Nintendo, with a copy of that imported Mario Brothers with one telly here, and then in another telly right next to it, they have Sonic the Hedgehog. And they go, kids, play what you want to play. And it was like 9 out of 10 people would want to play Sonic because they couldn't believe how good it was. And that's how they advertised it. What was his name? Pac-Man or something like that? That would show off the Intellivision next to the Atari and go, well, this is what Atari baseball looks like, and this is what Intellivision baseball looks like. It was like the first proper big rivalry. I mean, obviously there was always rivalry between, Pong clones of the first generation, who had the best Pong clone, but it wasn't as in your face as look at this look how much better we are compared to the competition.
Well, and Intellivision was second fiddle. And so when you're structuring around that branding, though, it goes back to that, like it's already starting from a second or third place in this case deficit. And
obviously sales wise, it was something like 10%. I think that's what I said in my video. It was 10%.
And think about the perspective that you mentioned too. What was the rivalry? Colecovision and Intellivision, right?
Yeah.
What are we having synonymous with ColecoVision now? The Chameleon.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you have the Amico. They're immediately thinking Intellivision Amico, Coleco Chameleon. Oh, this is a scam. Like, people went into it because of that, making that comparison, because there was such a tight niche rivalry in the States. So like that, like, you know what I mean? Like, it was kind of one of those perfect storms where it was almost unavoidable that people are going to think that, Tommy Tallarico's not going to come through because Mike Kennedy didn't back in the day. And it's like, that's not true, because they're different people, they're different company, different licensing, they have the name, there's different ideas.
Well, yeah, there are different people from different companies, but now you've got Phil Adam, who's in charge of the Intellivision Amico stuff. And he actually he was part of the VCS team that's recent, well, not recently, but in the more later life of the Amico scandal. That was something that came out like, oh my God, he was part of that. The Coleco Chameleon.
And you mentioned the VCS. I kind of feel like the VCS did more damage to the Amico than anything, because it was kind of a flash in the pan.
Yeah, I've got one up there. Yeah. It's been put on once.
But it's like a flash in the pan. Like, it was okay. Like, if they would have gotten more support on the eShop, it probably would have done better. But like, in reality, that one had more potential, with at least more advanced, not really, but but like, it kind of showed that, like, they did it, they got it out there, Atari put their money behind it, and it kind of didn't wow like they needed to. And it's the same thing that the Polymega's going through right now. Like, Polymega just can't get systems out there, but it's doing right things, getting FPGA out there, playing your cartridges, but like, it's still not hitting gangbusters that they need to, because and unfortunately that means they'll have less support in the future if they aren't able to make enough money to justify doing more molding and ports and doing a Game Boy cartridge slot or something. Like, it's all of that, where I think it's like a perfect storm where the Amico was hurting, and it was. And again, like I said, I don't think there's any negligence, and I don't fault any content creator that was covering it during the time, getting hyped behind a brand new console. It freaking sounds cool as shit. Like, why would you blame like anybody out there that's getting behind it? And of course,
well, I like to hear that, because I was one of the people that was supporting it, obviously.
You did, and I mean, because you even mentioned it in your video coverage. But the thing is that, like, I want to support every new thing. I want everything to succeed, because we get more games. Why would you not want that? It's kind of being a jerk if you say, "Oh, I hope this fails. This is definitely going to fail." Like, let's throw positivity. There's too much negativity out there. Because, I mean, obviously, somebody did a Christmas special on the Amico and was trashing people. And it was like, it's just, like, why would you want to wish ill about other people? Like, let's hope that you get it down there. If I invested a ton of money into it, like, I would probably be a little salty. But...
I'll give no comment on that one.
Yeah, exactly. I'd probably be a little salty.
I'll give no comment.
But I kind of see investing into a system like that like investing into a Kickstarter. If the game never comes out, I was going toward the idea. And that's why I put forth enough money to I'm comfortable supporting that idea to come into fruition. If it doesn't happen, at least I try to support what their idea was, and I supported enough to put my money behind it. There's been a lot of Kickstarters over the years that I've supported, like hundreds of Kickstarters, and there's a lot that haven't come to. Like there was one recently. Do you remember the Nintendo Quest? It used to be NES Quest, where they did a movie where the guy had to collect the entire Nintendo Entertainment System in 30 days or something, the whole NES library, cartridges.
Yep.
And they had a tier that was, they were making an NES game called Nintendo Quest, the game, and the thing was that they recently canceled it. And they asked if people want their money back, and I'm like, no, dude, I'm good. I supported your idea. You're fine. Like, that was like 10 years ago. And their thing was that the programmer for that game was Joe Granada, who did the new 8-Bit Heroes and Mystic Searches, and he was going to program his game after Mystic Searches finished, and Mystic Searches still isn't out 10 years later. He's still working on it. So he had not even started on this giant RPG about collecting video games.
Wow.
So it's been 10 years. They just cut it, and they're like, "Sorry, like we'll reimburse you your money if you want to." And every time that's happened over the years, I've had a few. I was like, "No, you're fine." Like I backed because of these things. There's other people that are hard up. I mean, I make cool stuff. I can let other people, I'm not trying. I know it's gonna be hard for them, no matter what, when you gotta reimburse money like that, because you lose out on all the fees. So I was like, "Dude, just go ahead." But I wanted the damn game. I thought it would have been cool as shit to have an RPG where you collect games. I mean, I released my own at the same time. That was Black Box Challenge at the same time. We didn't even know we were doing the same thing at the same time. He actually was angry at one point because we had done that right before them, and we beat them to the patch. So I was like, I didn't even know you were doing it. And my game has been in and out in multiple print runs at this point. Like we've already published it. So it's
awesome.
But it's like, yeah, it's a similar thing though when you're supporting an Amico, right? Like it's.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough one. The hate was so hardcore for it.
It was.
And yeah, it. And not just the hate, but like the hardcore supporters, the blind supporters, as well, were so hardcore for it that you couldn't. People don't agree with this part. Some people don't agree with this part of the video, but the blind hate and the blind support on both sides was so hardcore that if you went down the middle, you were going to get pulled either way. I don't think, especially if you did something as hardcore as make a video, and yeah, like. It was the whole thing was just so fascinating to me from beginning to end. But I mean, yeah, to answer your question, that was the hardest video I ever did. Yeah, I actually that Boulder Dash video I just did, that was almost completely written. The script for that was almost completely written before I started on the Amico video. A lot got changed towards the end, but yeah, like I was like, oh, you know what? It's getting close to Christmas. As a YouTuber, for people out there that don't know, you want to get your best content out at Christmas. That's when your best adverts are out there and stuff like that. Yeah, so I started it in like late October, I think it was, and I was like, right, I'm going to get this ready for a December release. And it just became whenever I work on something, like for instance, I'm working on an Evil Dead video right now, or I'm going to be starting working on that soon. My life has now become Evil Dead. I've watched almost 3 series of shows. 5 movies, 2 documentaries, and I'm starting to now listen to the like interviews.
Listen to a record of the Necronomicon in the cabin in the woods.
Yeah, I'm doing all of this stuff because I've just become obsessed with it, and your life just becomes absorbed. And normally when you do a big franchise like Castlevania, a better example would be Pac-Man, because Pac-Man's just one idea. There's a few spin-offs that do weird things like the cooking game and stuff, but you're just playing like him in this maze and a variation of that. And when you've done that now for 2 hours and you've talked about Pac-Man for 2 hours and you've played 2 hours worth of content for a video, which is hundreds of hours worth of video, by the end you're like, I can't fucking stand Pac-Man anymore. And you get back into it like ages later, but you become so obsessed with it. And Amico took me 4 months, and I was going to bed early in the middle of the night every night. And one of the painful things for me is I can look at a script and go, okay, this is a 30-page script. That's going to be that amount of time. This is roughly going to be a 10-minute video. This is going to be a 2-hour video, whatever. And I could roughly, within the space of about 10 minutes or so, work out how long a video is going to be. That script was over 200 pages long. Well, it was actually over 300 pages long originally, maybe 400. I can't remember. Of the notes, but when I transformed it into a script, it was over 200 pages long, barely, like 208 or something like that. But I still didn't know how long it was going to be, even though that was extortionately bigger than all my other videos, because it would be date, space, and then I'd say a line, date, space, and then I'd say a line. So it was really spread out over those 200 pages. It wasn't like, a paragraph of talking, a paragraph of talking, a paragraph of talking, because the whole thing was dated. The whole video was dated. I was just like, I'm guessing it's going to be a 2-hour video. I don't know. And people kept saying it's probably going to be about 4 hours. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it might move to 3 hours. I don't think so. I don't think it'll be longer than 2. And then it just kept going. And because I just edit and I'd done that and I did that and I did that. And I'm like, I was losing my mind by the end. I'm like, I don't know when this is going to end. Because I've edited today and I've spent several hours editing, trying to find all of the resources and the gameplay for this and the cutting out of the screenshot for that. And I'm like, I've done 12 minutes worth of editing today, and that's taken me 8 hours or whatever it's taken me. So, I mean, like the Jaguar, do the math. And it was a 4-hour video. It took so long. And all my mates that were like, not that into it, but like not that into gaming, but I'm in WhatsApp group with like my real world friends. I would say to them like, yeah, I'm still working on this Amico video, and they're like, oh God, will you stop talking about the Amico? How are you still working on that video? Expecting it to come out in December, and it released in February. The day it released, I was doing final touch-ups to it. So it literally from end of October to the day it came out. Yeah.
And so that's the thing was like, I've been working on the Sega Genesis Mega Drive book for 6 years.
You're not worried about Sega hitting that, because they did recently, didn't they, with the other book?
No.
I hope it doesn't happen.
No, I mean, it's going to be licensed or I'm not doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I already had an agreement with them 6 years ago. It's been a while, so I have to renew time.
Yeah.
But I told them I'll get back with them once I'm in a position to release, and I'll let them check the draft. They're gonna like my new version because there's no personal opinions in any of the individual games, just stories. So,
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna really like my new version because their concern is their image, which is everyone. But yeah, no, I'm good with that. Yeah, it was interesting with the whole Amico talk though. That stuff is so crazy, and the thing is, people don't realize how long it takes you to work on videos. Yeah. So I mean, from every angle. I mean, the personal connection to the story, the fact that I had to like sort of rebuild my reputation a little bit, the fact that it took me 4 months to make, which no video's ever done. I mean, other videos have taken longer, but from like the fact that was my focus from beginning to end for those 4 months, it was the longest time. My PC was crawling along by the end, like, please stop giving me like footage to put in this video. And like, the day it went up, I was having issues with the with different things. The fact that I had that takedown sort of thing of Tommy Tallarico, who I was friends with, who I thought was a friend, all of these elements together leads to the hardest video I've ever done. And I mean, I'm sure there'll be bigger ones in the future, but as of right now, I struggle to think of a video that would, even if I did something like now, and it will happen, if I did like a Sonic the Hedgehog complete history, that would just be hard to do because it'll be a long video to do. Or Zelda.
Or Zelda or something like that. That would just be hard to do because it's a big video to do. Yeah. It won't have all of the other weight on it as well, Well,
exactly. Like, you had the whole historical relevance because you're in the now of it, but you also had a personal relationship with that one.
I mean, I've never done a kick scammer video except for like I backed this thing. I've done like the Ren and Stimpy thing, with John Kay. Like, I backed this, and that was my only connection. Where I knew I was going to talk about this Amico video. I didn't know how long it was going to be, but I was going to talk about the Amico, how bad and how terrible and how can you believe people fell for this? Oh my God, what losers. Oh my God, can you believe it? Can you believe it? And then 3 hours in go, and then I fell for it. You know, so that was it.
And you know, the thing is that like that's a crazy story. And I mean, I assume your favorite video is probably your Streets of Rage.
Yeah, I mean, well, probably my favorite is the Amico, right, as of right now. But no, my favorite history video, it'd either be the Castlevania as a complete video, or Streets of Rage. The second one I did, Streets of Rage, the complete history.
I mean, the Castlevania one, I love your cuts in it and stuff, because that's one of the things that we do with video game bullshit is like with our intros and stuff, we cut some musical interludes and things on the audio version, and we have fun with that. And
that's one of the things. Lazy Game Review said like he always tries to update how he not update but like try new things. Every few videos he'll try something new and see if that's something he wants to add in. When I started doing mixing for my videos, like the audio mixing, it really slowed down the process, but the end result is next level. I think if you go back and listen to how I audio edited my older videos compared to like newer ones, like some of them actually have remixes of songs in. Like my new Boulder Dash has a remix that I've put in there. Pac-Man I think has about 4. Dizzy has about 5 remixes I've done. I mean, they're not much. It's very much like the original song, cut up the chip tune, put a good beat over the top and maybe a bass line. But it's still that takes time because I've done all of that.
That goes back to your DJing time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
True passion, which is what makes your channel cool as shit because you're putting that passion into it. And that's what makes it unique. Like besides obviously the historical accuracy, but more so the passion behind it and the delivery. Yeah.
I mean, I love doing little things like that, hiding in it, whether it's a remix or like sometimes when the screen will move, you'll see something hidden behind the background. Someone will say like, where did you find that remix, or where did that come from? Or I noticed that in the Miko video is a bit where there's a load of text that comes on the screen for 1 frame and goes away, but sometimes people pick up on it, and they're like, and then they start talking amongst themselves in the comments. And if it's a remix I've done, they're like, "Where did you find that remix?" I'm like, "Well, I actually made it." So, you know, get hold of me on Discord. I'll send it over.
You said the picture popping up. Is that like a Fight Club reference where they show the penis for a second? Like, I just see a penis on your screen.
It's not on my channel anymore, but because I've always been obsessed with that, making things look like old found footage VHS, sort of like glitchy, you know, things moving up and down. I did hide the penis from Fight Club in an old trailer for my channel back when it was a bit more Wild West. That is hidden in there, but it's not my trailer anymore. It's gone. You can see it. I like it was very distorted and it was upside down, I think, and a few other things.
I'm not surprised. That's like I like the idea of adding your own aesthetic to it instead of just pulling from sources. Like it's fun.
I mean, obviously, Kick Scammers for the most part is my junk food content. Like I like to call it. It's the sort of content like. It's that sort of junk food content that you find in magazines, like my brother ran off with my husband or whatever, you know, like that. Those terrible tabloid things.
Yeah, it's like
but as ridiculous they are. Yeah, as ridiculous as they are, they catch your eye, and that's quite clickbait, I suppose you could call it. But they're like quite interesting and it's quite fun and it's comedy. And I have to do videos like that. Because when I do Pac-Man, the complete history, or whatever franchise I'm doing, I'm so absorbed into that franchise. Yeah, I need to relax and just do something stupid, which is Kick Scammers, before I can then get back into it and do. I don't even know what Micro Machines, the complete history or something, you know, whatever it'll be.
I think that's a key thing as a content creator, and it's how you preserve the longevity of what you do. Because, I mean, it's the same deal where I'm working on multiple book projects at the same time, or now books and games. Because I'm not working on just constantly doing games 24/7. I get burnt out. Like, you avoid your burnout by jumping into a different style, some other type of content, and you probably intermix it and also plan the releases so you can maximize the algorithm, because you have to do that.
Yeah.
So outside of Evil Dead, what do you got coming up? What's going on with you, Dan?
I'm working on a kick scammer video based on a. How can I explain it without giving it away? It's it's talking about, and I actually remember I reached out to you to fill in a few gaps here, but there was a Nintendo Switch game that's going up in value because of a really messy publishing deal, and I look into the whole history of that. Plus a little bit of behind the scenes info about the whole limited run process at the beginning of the video. It's all recorded. I just need to edit it now.
Never have a problem ever giving details as because I have back knowledge from behind the scenes. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So you got that. I'm working on an Evil Dead. Not a complete history. I have a thing called the history in the games, where I look into the history of the thing. Normally it's like a comic or a cartoon show or whatever. I've done like Ren and Stimpy, I've done Beavis and Butthead, Family Guy, South Park, all these other things. So a lot of like Disney things like Pinocchio and no, did I do Pinocchio? Aladdin and things like that. Like how these things came to be, and then I find every video game related to them. So this one, I'm obviously going to look into the history of how Evil Dead came to be, look into all of the things it turned into, like its comics and the sequels and the show and all that sort of stuff, and then find every video game related to it. Because there's so many Evil Dead games. Some people to realise. I mean, you got the big one that came out not long ago, and it's recently been put up on Steam. But also, I mean, the first one was a Commodore 64 game.
I was going to say, you're going to talk about the Commodore one. I want to call you.
Yeah, that was the first one.
He says the Commodore
it's hard to go back to that one now, But that's what I do with that franchise. It's a bit of a smaller franchise, and then I want to do another complete history. But the next complete history will be a significantly smaller complete history. That I've just done a 57-minute video on Boulder Dash, which is absurd. But again, Boulder Dash, it's one idea: go through the cave and don't get crushed. Get the diamonds and don't get crushed. But they released so many different versions of that game, and 57 minutes talking about that. When I sent that over to people that I know are hardcore fans, they're like, "Oh, you could make this longer if you want." No, it's fine. 57 minutes of Boulder Dash is fine. But it's one basic idea, but I tell you what, normally I'm fed up with games by the end, but that one I'm weirdly addicted to now. I always enjoyed it, but now I'm addicted. Like, it's a really addictive game. It's got like a bit of a Tetris obsessive style to it when you learn the mechanics of the game. Really good, that one.
Man, there's a few Metroidvanias out there like that.
And for sure. There you go. Oh, but they're the two videos coming up, and I also want to make a history video on Sega World in London as well at some point. But that's been in the pipeline forever. That one.
Nice, and then
in time.
You were talking about a Blu-ray you're working on.
I'm working on a Blu-ray. There's not much I can say about it yet, but I am doing a Sega Complete History Blu-ray. I'm really, really going heavy on the fact that I want this to be more than just the episodes on YouTube downloaded. They're obviously the original files, so they're obviously the better quality. One thing that I do badly for YouTube is when I do all this found footage stuff and I do all of the glitchy stuff on the screen and look like things are warping into other things. When you do a lot of that particle stuff on the screen with YouTube, it actually lowers the quality. So you go watch the original files, they look a million miles better. I've got commentaries on every single one. I've got I'm trying to get guest commentaries for every episode as well. The video, every single game that I talk about will have its own menu screen with all of the commercials playing for that game. There's hidden content all the way through. I mean, it's about video games. I have to put Easter eggs in there,
Exactly.
And there's an absurd amount of Easter eggs on the video. So it's taken a really long time, but I love what I'm doing with it. If you
need somebody to do a Mega Drive style themed manual for it.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I kind of do.
I can't say who the distributor is yet, but they're an extremely big Blu-ray distributor. It's one of their side subsidiaries, I suppose, of that company that are reaching out. They're a bit more niche because they've done video gamey ones before.
So an
I imagine they will
inside the Blu-ray case is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it would be nice. It would be nice.
Because that's what we do with ours, because ours also does Blu-ray and DVD and CDs, and we ship them in bulk, the add-ons, and they will insert them in the case.
Sure. Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm saying, if you need somebody to design a manual, I might do that for you.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really, really cool. It would be very, very cool.
Put it as an add-on.
That would be awesome. I mean, it would work as well, 5 pages, because then that would be 10 games. Yeah. Right. Okay.
It's a scope creep, man.
Yeah.
But it was great having you on. It was awesome. I love that we were able to start the interviews for Video Game Bullshit with freaking DJ Slope over here talking.
Yes, buddy.
We'll see where the damn video cut off on once it stopped. I think it hit.
Yeah, and we'll see how many people want to sit through a 4-hour interview listening to me.
I mean, the one thing I'll ask for assistance from you on is some cool ass, thumbnail for YouTube, because I work on it.
I can help you. I'll help you make a template, and then you can use it in future ones. Yeah. I'll work on something for it.
So outside of YouTube, where can people find you, Daniel?
Just go to Google, type Slope's Game Room. I'm all over the place. You can get me on Twitter, you can get me on Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok, actually. I'm trying to make exclusive content for TikTok. 60-second little factoids.
That's pretty cool.
About random stuff. Yeah. TikTok's the Wild West, man. You go there and you talk about ET carts in the desert. That's new information on TikTok. That is new information. Thankfully, I don't talk about ET carts in the desert. I talk about far more interesting things, like the one I'm coming up with, the twisted metal lawsuit that I've recently discovered. So I talk about things like that. Cool. So go and follow me on places like TikTok, Instagram, obviously YouTube, and hey, if you want to be extra awesome, why not Patreon as well?
Boom.
There it is.
Yeah. So for Video Game Bullshit, you can listen to us on Spotify. We're on the YouTubes. As well as Spotify also pushes it over to like Apple Podcasts. It's an old school one. There's over 170 episodes on there, so you can get the whole backlog of Video Game Bullshit. But also we have a Discord set up where you can come along and follow us on the bullshit homework. Appreciate you coming on, Daniel, and we will see all you listeners next time. Take it easy.
Hey, stuff. Bye, peeps.